The first video anyone sent me from my wedding night did not show my dress, my ring, or the man I had just married. It showed my father standing beneath a 40-foot digital billboard while cold April wind battered the microphone and blue-white light washed the color from his face. Behind him, traffic hissed over dry pavement. Above him, Noah and I stood beneath the glass roof of the community greenhouse, my hand against his chest, both of us smiling beneath the words, "A new chapter begins today." My Aunt Marlene had filmed from across the sidewalk. Her camera shook when Uncle Peter stepped toward my father and asked, "Raymond, why weren't you there?" Someone else said, "Tessa saved seats for you." My father looked toward the street instead of answering. The video ended when Aunt Marlene lowered her phone, but the questions did not. Weeks later, my mother gave my attorney screenshots from my father's phone. Cousins, former neighbors, people from his foundation, and relatives he had not spoken to in years had all asked some version of the same thing. Why weren't you there? Before I tell you how my wedding ended up on that billboard, I hope you are doing well today, and I hope you will stay with me to the end and subscribe to the channel for more stories about people who finally stop letting family rewrite the truth. The story really began 4 days earlier, on Monday morning, with a message I had already decided would be my last. Our formal invitations had gone out 6 weeks before the wedding. My parents had received theirs by certified mail because I had learned not to leave important facts open to interpretation. My younger sister, Brianna, had received hers at the townhouse she shared with her 8-year-old son, Lucas. Each invitation included a response card, an email address, and the deadline. None of them answered. I did not call every night. I did not send my mother pictures of my dress or ask my father to walk me down the aisle. Noah and I had chosen to enter together. Still, silence can occupy more space than an argument, and by the Monday before the wedding, I wanted one final answer recorded somewhere no one could later revise. At 8:17 that morning, I opened the family chat. "I'm getting married this Friday. I'd love to see you all." Brianna replied first. "We're busy. Don't expect us." My father's answer appeared less than a minute later. What a disgrace. My mother read both messages. Her name remained beneath them, with no reply. I typed 3 different answers. The first accused my father of confusing disgrace with disobedience. The second reminded Brianna that she had attended 2 charity luncheons for strangers that month but could not find 1 hour for her only sister. The third was longer and crueler, which meant it would have given my father exactly what he wanted. Proof that I was unstable, vindictive, and still desperate for his approval. I deleted all 3. "All right," I wrote. Then I silenced the chat, set my phone face down, and returned to the employment plan open on my laptop. That was the part my father never understood about me. He mistook restraint for surrender because he had spent most of his life around people who either obeyed him or exploded. He had no language for a woman who could hear an insult, document it, and continue with her day. At lunch, Noah found me at our kitchen table with a legal pad beside my computer and 2 ivory place cards near my elbow. One said Mom, the other said Dad. He placed a bowl of soup beside me and looked at the cards. "Do you still want them in the front row?" "I want the decision to be mine," I said. "They already made theirs." "I know they did." Noah pulled out the chair opposite me. He was 40 then, broad-shouldered, quieter than he had been when we were young, with a pale line near his temple that had come from a prison assault he rarely discussed. He never used his history to win arguments. That made it harder when he asked questions I did not want to answer. "Are the cards for them," he said, "or for the version of them you still hope might walk through the door?" I ran my thumb along the edge of my mother's name. Our wedding was not extravagant. We had saved for it from my salary as a vocational rehabilitation specialist and Noah's income as a job training coordinator. We rented a community greenhouse that held 72 guests, hired a local caterer, and skipped the expensive hotel ballroom my mother would have considered respectable. We still lived in the same 2-bedroom apartment where we had learned how to disagree without threatening to leave. Nothing about the wedding depended on my parents. That did not mean their absence had no weight. "I don't need Dad to approve of Noah Bennett," I said. "I need to know I gave him no excuse to claim he was excluded." Noah's expression tightened at the use of his full name. My father had spent years saying it as if it belonged in a criminal index. "And after that?" Noah asked. "After Friday, there are no more invitations." He studied me long enough to tell me he believed the boundary, but not yet the reason behind it. I can live with that, he said. I just won't watch you turn our wedding into a test they get to grade. I moved the place cards into the folder containing the seating chart. They don't get to grade anything. That afternoon, we drove 12 minutes to the Second Chapter Initiative's office. The organization had helped Noah find housing, counseling, and work after his release. It was also launching a public campaign called Life After Exoneration, built around a simple idea. Release was not the end of an injustice. It was the beginning of rebuilding a life that institutions had interrupted. Leah Marino, the communications director, met us in a small conference room with 2 printed billboard layouts taped to the wall. The first would run throughout the day on Friday. It showed Noah alone, standing inside a vocational workshop. Noah Bennett lost 11 years, the text read. He did not lose his future. The second layout held a gray box where a wedding photograph would be placed after the ceremony. Just married, it read beneath our names. A new chapter begins today. Leah tapped the gray square. The photographer sends 3 pre-formatted options by 7:45. You both choose one. If either of you says no, the daytime version stays up. The digital board changes at 8:30. Noah folded his arms. No prison bars in the background. No language about me being saved by love. Tessa did not rescue me, and marriage is not evidence that I recovered correctly. Leah nodded and crossed those phrases from her notes, even though neither appeared in the drafts. You retain approval, she said. Both of you. I did not answer for Noah. I did not soften his tone or explain that public campaigns made him uneasy. The story belonged to him before it belonged to the organization, and before it belonged to me. Leah handed us release forms and a distribution schedule. A line at the bottom listed nonprofit partners in a regional advertising coalition. I recognized the name of my father's organization, the Ward Road Safety Foundation, but I did not give it much thought. The schedule had gone to dozens of groups. At the time, I assumed my father would learn about the billboard only when everyone else did. That assumption lasted less than a day. Before leaving, Noah signed the version, allowing our approved wedding image to run. I signed beside him. Leah placed both forms in a folder and said the final decision could still be withdrawn until 8 that evening. In the parking lot, Noah paused beside our car. If they call after the billboard goes up, what will you do? Nothing during the reception. And afterward? I'll decide based on what they say, not on what I wish they meant. A small smile moved across his face. That sounds like the woman I'm marrying. The next morning, I was at work helping a client named Marcus prepare for a warehouse interview. He had been rejected twice because an old conviction appeared on a background check before employers read the rest of his application. We built a timeline of training certificates, references, and work history. We practiced a direct explanation that neither minimized his past nor allowed it to erase everything that came after. Facts in the right order, I told him, sliding the final page across my desk. Do not let someone else arrange them for you. He read the sentence, then looked at me. You say that like you learned it the hard way. I learned that lesson the hard way. At 11:36, the receptionist called my extension. There's an envelope for you, she said. No return address. It was waiting at the front desk, a plain white envelope with my name printed in block letters. The Cedar Grove postmark was from the previous afternoon. One corner had been pressed flat so many times that the paper had softened. I did not tear it open. I carried it to an unused conference room, photographed the front, back, postmark, and sealed edge, then called Maya Chen, my attorney. Do not open it alone, she said. Noah was leading a training session across town. I sent him a message before I did anything else. An anonymous envelope arrived at work. I have not opened it. Maya's on the phone and I want you included. He called within 2 minutes. I placed both calls on speaker, washed my hands, and opened the envelope along the top seam with a letter opener. Inside was one sheet of blue carbon paper, folded in thirds. The upper corner had a repair order number. The date was July 10th, 2011, the morning after Daniel Mercer had been struck on County Road 9. The vehicle description matched my parents' dark green sport utility vehicle. The listed work was brief. Replace left headlamp assembly, repair front bumper, cash payment. At the bottom, someone had written a note in narrow, slanted handwriting. Young woman crying, father paid cash, requested no insurance record. For several seconds, the room seemed to contract around the sheet. I kept my hands flat on the table so I would not touch it again. Maya asked me to read the date twice. Then she asked whether I recognized the shop name. Gordon Pike Auto, I said. My father used them for years. Noah had gone silent. The state's original case had claimed the damage was discovered after police identified him as the driver. My father had testified that he knew nothing about the condition of the vehicle until investigators contacted our family. But the repair order had been created before sunrise, hours before the police inspected the car. My father had not merely suspected the vehicle was involved. He had moved it. He had repaired it. He had paid cash to keep the work away from insurance records. Maya's voice became precise. She told me to leave the paper where it was, lock the conference room, and wait for her courier. She would create a receipt and chain of custody log before anyone examined the original. Noah finally spoke. Who kept something like that for 14 years? I looked at the blue carbon copy and pictured my childhood home, where my father threw away every receipt after balancing his accounts, while my mother stored warranties, tax records, appliance manuals, and canceled checks in labeled boxes. Maya asked the same question in a different way. Who in the ward house would have had access to the original repair paperwork? I already knew the answer. My mother, I said. Elaine kept everything. Noah stayed on the phone while Maya's courier sealed the blue carbon copy inside an evidence envelope. The courier photographed the conference room table, recorded the time, and had me sign a receipt confirming that I had opened the original envelope but had not written on or altered the document inside. By then, my workday was over. I sat alone in the conference room with my laptop closed and my untouched coffee cooling near the wall. Noah had finished his training session, but instead of driving home, he remained in his car outside the employment center. You called Maya before you called me, he said. His voice was controlled, which made the accusation sharper. I called her because the envelope might contain evidence, I said. I sent you a message before I opened it. You still decided what needed to happen first. The paper needed to be protected. I know that, Tessa. I'm not saying you should have carried it around in your purse. I'm saying this is about 11 years of my life, and your instinct was still to build a plan before I knew there was a problem. I almost told him that only a few minutes had passed. I almost reminded him that I had included him before reading the document. Both statements were true, and neither addressed what he was saying. When frightened, I turned uncertainty into a list of tasks. I checked dates, saved messages, identified risks, and decided which information other people could handle. That habit had made me good at my work. It had also allowed me to convince myself that controlling the order of events was different from controlling the people inside them. You're right, I said. I treated the evidence like a problem I had to contain before I treated it like part of your life. The silence that followed was not forgiveness, but it was no longer an argument. I don't want to learn about the next document after your attorney does, he said. You won't, and if someone contacts you about the case, we decide together what happens next. Yes. No interviews, no private meetings with your family, and no promises to anyone without telling me. I looked through the glass wall at the receptionist, shutting down her computer for the evening. I agree. Noah exhaled slowly. I'm still angry. You have the right to be. That was the difference between taking responsibility and begging to be released from it. I did not ask him to reassure me that I had done nothing wrong. I had made the safest decision for the paper and an unfair decision for the man whose life it concerned. Both could be true. Maya called us again from her office 40 minutes later. She had reviewed the scan but warned us not to treat the repair order as proof of anything yet. We have an anonymous envelope, a carbon copy, and handwriting we haven't authenticated, she said. It may be genuine, it may have been altered, it may lead somewhere important, or it may have been sent to provoke you before the wedding. What happens now? Noah asked. We verify the shop, the numbering system, the paper, and whether any related records survived. We also identify everyone who might have possessed the original. Until then, neither of you confronts Raymond, Elaine, or Brianna. My mother's name stayed with me after the call ended. Elaine kept everything. She saved appliance manuals for machines we no longer owned. She stored tax returns in labeled boxes and slipped receipts into envelopes by year. When I was a child, she could produce the warranty for a toaster faster than she could answer a direct question about my father's temper. If the carbon copy was genuine, my mother might have held its matching page for 14 years. The repair order carried me back to July of 2011, when the air inside my parents' house felt heavy enough to hold fingerprints. I was 25, Noah was 26. Brianna had turned 18 6 weeks earlier and believed adulthood meant no one could tell her when to come home. My parents were hosting a backyard party after the town's summer road race. Raymond had invited police officers, city employees, foundation donors, and neighbors. Music drifted through the open kitchen windows, while people carried bowls of ice and trays of food across the lawn. The sun had gone down, but heat still pressed through my cotton dress. The kitchen smelled of grilled onions, spilled beer, and the lemon cleaner my mother used whenever guests were coming. Noah had borrowed my parents' dark green SUV that afternoon to collect folding tables and speakers from the community center. Raymond trusted him enough to move equipment, but not enough to stop reminding everyone that Noah's father had served time for theft. When Noah returned, I was standing near the kitchen counter. He placed the main keys beside my purse and touched my wrist. "Truck's full of gas," he said. "Your dad's speakers survived. That may be the first good news he's had all week." Noah smiled, then carried the last speaker outside. A few minutes later, Brianna came through the kitchen wearing denim shorts and a white blouse. Her cheeks were flushed, and she smelled faintly of fruit punch with something sharper beneath it. "Where's the spare key?" she asked. "What do you need?" "My jacket's in the car." I opened the narrow drawer beside the refrigerator. My mother kept spare keys there on a brass ring with a cracked red tag. "Bring it back," I said. Brianna rolled her eyes, took the ring, and walked toward the side door. I did not watch her cross the driveway. I did not see her open the SUV. I assumed she wanted the jacket because the temperature would fall later. That assumption became one of the facts I replayed most often over the following years. Not because it proved what she did, but because it showed how little attention a life-changing moment could demand while it was happening. The party became louder after dark. Daniel Mercer arrived around 9 with 2 friends from high school. He and Noah had disliked each other for years. Daniel came from a family that owned 3 hardware stores, while Noah had grown up changing apartments whenever rent became impossible. Daniel treated that difference as evidence of character. I heard raised voices near the back fence, but by the time I reached them, other people were already separating the 2 men. Daniel's lip was bleeding. Noah's right hand was clenched. "What happened?" I asked. "He called my father a thief," Noah said. Daniel wiped blood from his mouth and laughed. "I called the whole family what they are." Noah moved toward him again, but I stepped between them and pushed both hands against his chest. "Go home," I said. His breathing was hard, and anger tightened every line of his face. "I'm not leaving you here with them. I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you not to make this worse." He looked at Daniel, then at me. Finally, he opened his hand and walked toward the street. That punch became the foundation of the state's case. It gave prosecutors a motive simple enough for strangers to understand. Noah hated Daniel. Noah had driven the Ward SUV. Noah had left the party angry. Hours later, Daniel was found beside County Road 9 with injuries consistent with being struck by that vehicle. The rest was arranged around those facts. I left the party shortly after Noah. Brianna was gone, but no one seemed concerned. My mother said she had gone upstairs with a headache. Raymond said she was probably on the phone with friends. I did not check her room. The next morning, the spare keys were back in the kitchen drawer. I remember picking them up because the cracked red tag caught beneath my fingernail. Raymond stood behind me, pouring coffee. "Brianna returned these?" I asked. "She brought them back before she went upstairs." "What time?" "Early, why?" "She'd been drinking." Raymond set the coffee pot down. "She took a jacket from the car, Tessa. Don't invent a crisis because you're upset with your sister." His certainty closed the subject. That was one of his greatest skills. He could make a question sound irresponsible, merely because he did not want it asked. When police later questioned me about access to the SUV, I told them Noah had driven it that afternoon. I also told them Brianna had borrowed the spare key to get her jacket. Raymond was present during that conversation, even though he was not officially assigned to the case. He interrupted to explain that Brianna had returned the key well before the accident. The investigator wrote down that the spare had been accounted for. At trial, the prosecutor asked whether I had seen the key inside the house the following morning. I said yes. He asked whether Noah had possessed the main set after driving the SUV. I said he had returned it to the kitchen counter, but I could not say who touched it later. By the time my answer reached the jury, the uncertainty had disappeared. Noah had access to the SUV. Brianna's key had been safely returned. Daniel and Noah had fought. Noah had no reliable witness for part of the night. The state did not need every fact to be false. It only needed the facts arranged in the order most damaging to him. The blood on Noah's clothes appeared to finish the story. Daniel had been found shortly after midnight. Noah had been driving home in an old sedan borrowed from a coworker when he saw something near the shoulder of the road. He stopped, found Daniel barely conscious, and called emergency services. The recording later confirmed that Noah gave his name, described Daniel's breathing, and followed instructions to keep pressure on a wound near his shoulder. Daniel's blood soaked Noah's shirt and hands. When the first responding officer arrived, he saw the man who had punched Daniel hours earlier, kneeling beside him, covered in blood. Noah was detained before dawn. My father told me the arrest proved he had been right about Noah from the beginning. For years, I believed the case had been built from unfortunate facts and imperfect memories. I knew Raymond had pressured me to trust his interpretation, but I did not yet understand how early he had started shaping the evidence itself. Maya helped explain why the conviction had eventually collapsed. 2 years before our wedding, a witness who had testified that he saw Noah near the SUV withdrew his statement. He admitted Raymond had repeatedly suggested what time and location he should remember. The official dispatch archive showed something worse. Raymond had called to ask about an accident involving a dark SUV before Noah's emergency call entered the system. In his original statement, Raymond claimed he had learned about the collision only after police contacted the family. A transportation specialist then rebuilt the timeline using phone records, traffic cameras, and driving distances. Noah could not have driven the SUV away from the collision, hidden it, obtained the coworker's sedan, and returned to Daniel within the available time. The evidence did not identify the driver, Maya told us. It established that the trial was unreliable and that the timeline used to convict Noah did not work. The prosecutor chose not to retry him. That decision released Noah. It did not put Brianna's name into the official record. It did not prove who repaired the SUV or who pressured witnesses. It did not explain why my father knew about the accident before Noah called for help. The carbon copy might answer part of that, but only if it survived verification. Wednesday afternoon, my father called me. I was home with Noah when Raymond's name appeared on my screen. I turned the phone so Noah could see it. "Speaker?" I asked. He nodded. I answered without greeting. Raymond's voice carried the same measured disappointment he had used when I was a child and brought home a grade lower than he expected. "You need to stop the billboard." I looked at Noah. "What billboard?" "Don't play games with me, Tessa. The wedding version." Noah's organization intends to put your photograph over downtown Cedar Grove on Friday night. We had not announced that version publicly. Only the organization, the advertising vendor, and coalition partners had received the schedule. "How do you know what runs Friday night?" I asked. "Every nonprofit partner in this town knows more than you think." "That doesn't answer the question." "It answers enough." Noah leaned closer to the phone but did not speak. Raymond continued. "Withdraw the wedding image. Remove Noah from the campaign. Your mother and I may reconsider attending." The offer was so small compared with what he demanded that I almost laughed. He wanted control over Noah's public story, in exchange for the possibility that he might sit in a chair for an hour. "You received an invitation 6 weeks ago," I said. "Your attendance is not a bargaining chip. You're humiliating this family. The billboard is about Noah rebuilding his life. It turns a disputed legal technicality into public theater." The conviction was vacated because the evidence used against him was unreliable. That is not the same as innocence. Noah's jaw tightened, but he remained silent because we had agreed that this call was mine to handle. I kept my voice level. "The image release belongs to Noah and me. You don't get to negotiate it. You're choosing a campaign over your parents. No, you are conditioning your presence at my wedding on my willingness to silence my husband. He is not your husband yet. He will be on Friday." Raymond's breathing changed near the receiver. "If you let that image run, people will begin asking questions that will not stop with me." There it was. Not shame, not concern for Daniel, fear of attention. They should have asked those questions years ago, I said. He ended the call. I immediately contacted Leah Moreno. She checked the distribution list for the Coalition Press calendar. Ward Road Safety Foundation had received the campaign schedule through its communications office 6 days earlier. The calendar included the billboard location, launch time, and note that a wedding image might replace the daytime design after joint approval. Leah apologized and offered to remove Ward Foundation from future campaign distributions. Don't change anything yet, I said. Just preserve the email and access records. For the first time, we had a reasonable explanation for how Raymond knew. He had not guessed. Someone at his foundation had received the coalition schedule and placed it in front of him. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated with a message from my father. Ask Noah what he never told you about Daniel. I turned the screen toward Noah. He read the message once. Then he looked away and pressed both palms against the edge of the kitchen counter. What is he talking about? I asked. Noah did not answer. The refrigerator hummed behind us. Outside, a car passed through the wet street, its tires pushing water against the curb. I waited, but the silence between us continued long enough to become an answer of its own. Noah kept both hands against the kitchen counter, while Raymond's message remained lit between us. Ask Noah what he never told you about Daniel. I did not repeat the question. Noah had read it. He knew I was waiting. Finally, he pulled out a chair and sat down. Your father wants you to think I hid something that changes the case, he said. It doesn't. That isn't the same as saying there was nothing. No. I sat across from him and moved my phone between us, screen down. I did not want Raymond's words occupying the center of the table. What happened with Daniel before the fight? Noah rubbed his thumb along a scratch in the wood. He started talking about my father. Said prison was where men in my family belonged. Then he said you would figure that out about me eventually. I heard the argument from the yard. You arrived after I hit him. I remembered Daniel's split lip and Noah's clenched fist, but I had never known who struck first. You threw the first punch? Yes. How many times? Once. Some people pulled us apart before I could do it again. The answer was direct, without an excuse folded inside it. What did you say to him? Noah looked toward the dark window above the sink. I told him he would regret talking about my family that way. My father had spent years presenting that sentence as a threat of future violence. A prosecutor had repeated it before the jury. At the time, I had assumed Raymond learned it from someone at the party. You never told me the exact words. No. Why? Because after I was arrested, every conversation became a test. His gaze returned to me. If I admitted I punched Daniel, people treated that as proof I hit him with the car. If I explained why I punched him, they said I was minimizing violence. If I said I regretted it, they asked why an innocent man would sound guilty. You were guilty of hitting him. I know, but not of driving the sport utility vehicle. I know that too. His voice hardened on the last sentence. I understood why he had stayed silent. For years, people had required Noah to present himself as morally spotless before they would consider that he might be legally innocent. Any flaw became permission to ignore the difference between assaulting a man at a party and leaving him broken beside a rural road. You should have told me, I said. Yes. I'm not going to pretend the punch did not matter. I'm not asking you to. And I'm not going to let my father use it to replace the crime you did not commit. Some of the tension left Noah's shoulders. That is what he does, he said. He takes one true thing and builds a house around it until no one can see what is false. I picked up my phone and saved Raymond's message to the legal folder Maya had created. He sent this because the repair order scared him, or because he thinks you are still easier to control when you are disappointed in me. That part of his plan is no longer working. Noah watched me for a moment. Daniel deserves the truth too. I agreed, but I did not call Daniel immediately. The document concerned his body, his memories, and the years he had spent believing Noah abandoned him. Turning up at his home with a carbon copy and questions would have repeated the same mistake everyone had already made, deciding that our need for an answer outweighed his right to choose when and how he participated. Maya helped me write a short email. I told Daniel that an anonymous document had arrived suggesting my father knew the Ward vehicle was involved before the police inspection. I said the document was being authenticated. I did not claim it proved who drove. I did not ask him to forgive Noah, support the campaign, or attend the wedding. I ended with one sentence. You do not owe me a response, but you deserve to know that the record may change again. Daniel answered the next morning. Thursday, 2 o'clock, Northside Coffee, back table near the accessible entrance. Come alone. The cafe was 18 minutes from my office and less than 10 from Daniel's apartment. I arrived early enough to make sure the rear entrance was clear, then stopped myself from moving chairs or asking the staff to prepare anything. Daniel had chosen the location because he knew how to use it. He did not need me arranging the room around him. He arrived at 2 precisely, guiding a dark manual wheelchair through the rear door. He was 41, with close-cropped brown hair and heavier shoulders than I remembered. His movements were efficient but deliberate. He positioned the chair at the end of the table, locked the wheels, and placed a thick folder beside his coffee. I stood, but he did not offer his hand. You look like your mother, he said. I hear that less often now. That was not a compliment. I understood. I sat only after he did. Daniel looked at my wedding ring finger, still bare for one more day. So, Noah Bennett gets a billboard, and I get another person asking me to reopen the worst night of my life. I did not ask you to reopen anything. You sent me an email about new evidence. I told you it existed. You chose this meeting. He studied my face, perhaps waiting for defensiveness. You rehearsed that answer? No, Maya told me not to promise outcomes. The rest is mine. Your attorney has rules. Noah's defense attorneys had rules. Your father had rules. Every one of them decided which parts of my story mattered. I know. No, you know what happened to Noah. That is not the same thing. I kept my hands around the paper cup without drinking. You are right. Daniel's expression shifted slightly, though not toward kindness. My parents spent years telling reporters that Noah destroyed our family. Then his lawyers started calling me evidence of an unfair conviction. Your father used my wheelchair at foundation dinners. Now an innocence organization uses Noah's release to show that life continues. Everyone has a version where my body proves their point. I am not here to ask you to prove mine. Then why are you here? Because the document concerns the vehicle that hit you. Because you should hear about it before it appears in an investigation or the news. If you tell me to leave after that, I will. I described the blue carbon copy without showing him the scan. Maya had advised me not to circulate it until the original was authenticated. Daniel listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked down at the folder beside his coffee. Gordon Pike's shop? Yes. My father used to take our trucks there. Do you remember Gordon? I remember he stopped coming to foundation events after the second year. That was the first detail Daniel offered voluntarily. Do you know why? No, Raymond said. Gordon moved away. He said my father's first name without respect or familiarity. It sounded like the name of a man whose authority had expired. Daniel opened his folder. My civil attorney sent this after Noah's conviction was vacated. Most of it came from old discovery and records my parents kept. I did not read all of it for months. He removed a printed dispatch log and placed it on the table, keeping one hand over the top edge. This stays with me. Of course. He pointed to an entry shortly before midnight on July 9th, 2011. The caller was listed as Raymond Ward. The call had gone to the county dispatch desk, not emergency services. According to the note, Raymond asked whether an injury collision involving a dark sport utility vehicle had been reported near County Road 9. The timestamp was 11:51. Noah's emergency call had begun at 11:59. I read both times again. My father testified that he learned about the accident after the police contacted our family. I remember, Daniel said. He told my parents the same thing. Did anyone question this? My attorney said the first call was classified as an inquiry, not a report. Raymond claimed he had heard a rumor from someone leaving the party. Did he name the person? Not in anything I have. Daniel removed a small digital recorder from the folder. He pressed a button, and static filled the space between us. Noah's younger voice came through the speaker, breathless and frightened. He gave his name. He described a man lying beside the road. He said Daniel was breathing, but not responding clearly. The dispatcher instructed him not to move Daniel's neck, and to apply pressure where he was bleeding. Noah stayed on the line. In the background, I heard Daniel make a low sound. Noah told him help was coming. He repeated it several times, even after the dispatcher said the ambulance was less than 2 minutes away. The recording ended with an officer ordering Noah to step back and show his hands. Daniel switched off the device. For 11 years, I believed he came back because he wanted to see whether I was dead, he said. I did not know what to say, so I did not fill the space. My parents told me he must have panicked after hitting me. Daniel continued. Your father said guilty people sometimes return to the scene. The prosecutor said the blood on Noah's clothes showed he had been close enough to cause my injuries. He was close because he helped you. Yes. Daniel's fingers tightened around the recorder. That does not erase what happened at the party. He hit me. I insulted his father, and he hit me. I still remember the floor coming up under my face. You do not have to forgive him for that. I haven't. I am not asking you to. He nodded once. But he did not leave me beside the road, Daniel said. Whatever else Noah Bennett did that night, he called for help and stayed. The statement did not sound like reconciliation. It sounded like Daniel taking back ownership of one fact. I asked whether he had ever spoken to Noah since the conviction was vacated. No. Do you want to? I do not know. That answer is enough. Daniel put the recorder away but left the dispatch log on the table. My parents received help from the Ward Road Safety Foundation, he said. Physical therapy equipment, part of a home modification. Transportation costs when my mother stopped driving at night. The foundation was not created until 2013. Correct. Raymond said he wanted something good to come from what happened. The phrase sounded exactly like my father. He could convert harm into a mission statement before anyone had time to ask who caused it. Were the payments hidden? I asked. Not from us. My parents were grateful. Some support was real. That distinction mattered. A payment was not automatically a bribe, merely because Raymond made it. Daniel removed several photocopied letters bearing the foundation's logo. One approved a wheelchair ramp. Another covered part of a specialized vehicle conversion. The amounts were substantial but plausible for a regional charity with corporate donors. Then he showed me an email from Raymond to Daniel's mother, dated 2016. I hope your family can focus on Daniel's progress instead of allowing outside parties to reopen old wounds. Continued public controversy could make future fundraising more difficult for everyone involved. The email did not explicitly threaten to stop assistance. It did not ask anyone to destroy evidence. Raymond had written it carefully enough to preserve deniability, but the meaning was clear. He sent this after an investigator contacted us about Noah's appeal, Daniel said. My mother told the investigator we had nothing more to add. Did the foundation stop payments? No, that is why I cannot say he bought our silence. My parents may have made the same decision without the money. But he reminded them the money depended on public confidence. Daniel slid the email back into the folder. He made gratitude feel like a debt. I looked again at the dispatch log. Raymond had called 8 minutes before Noah found Daniel. He had known the vehicle type and approximate location before the official emergency report. How did my father know where to ask about? Daniel's face remained flat. That is your family's question. It should have been everyone's. Yes. I asked Maya's permitted question. Would you allow your attorney to provide a verified copy of the dispatch record and audio directly to an investigator? Daniel did not answer immediately. I will speak to my attorney, he said. I am not giving you the only copies. You should not. And I do not want the foundation email on your billboard. It will not be used in the campaign. You say that now. Noah and I approved the billboard before this document arrived. It contains nothing about you, Brianna, or my father. If the organization asks for anything else, the answer is no, unless you independently consent. Daniel held Migaze. Why are you marrying him? The question was quieter than the others. Because we rebuilt something honest. Or because you feel guilty. I do feel guilty. That was not my question. No. I am not marrying him to repay a debt. Noah would not accept that kind of marriage. And neither would I. Daniel looked toward the cafe window, where a bus lowered its ramp for an older woman with a walker. My parents said guilt made people do strange things. It does. That is why I try not to let mine make decisions by itself. He closed the folder. I received your wedding invitation? You do not have to come. I know. I will not ask again. For the first time since I sat down, Daniel's mouth moved close to a smile, though it never fully became one. That may be the smartest thing a ward has said to me. When I left the cafe, rain had begun to darken the pavement. I sat in my car and called Maya, then Noah. I reported only what Daniel had permitted me to share. The timestamps, the audio, the foundation support, and the email suggesting that reopening questions could affect fundraising. Noah remained silent after I described the emergency recording. "He kept it?" he asked. "Daniel has a copy." "What did he say?" "He said you called for help and stayed. He also said the punch still mattered." "It does. He has not decided whether he wants to speak with you." "That is his decision." It was the right answer, and I could hear how much it cost him. Before I started the car, my phone displayed an incoming call from Brianna. She had not called me directly in almost 4 months. I answered on speaker so Noah could hear. "Tessa," she said, her voice thin and hurried. "What did you receive in that envelope?" "I am not discussing evidence with you." "Was it from Gordon Pike's shop?" Noah inhaled sharply through the phone. The shop name had never appeared in the family chat, the campaign, or any public filing. "How do you know about Gordon?" I asked. Brianna ignored the question. "Did Dad tell you he put the spare key back in the kitchen drawer?" Brianna's question stayed between Noah and me. "Did Dad tell you he put the spare key back in the kitchen drawer?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, even though the car was parked. "How do you know he put it there?" "I asked you first. And I'm not discussing an anonymous document with you. Tell me what happened to the key." Her breathing quickened through the speaker. I heard a door close on her end, followed by the click of a lock. "Dad said you were asking questions again," she said. "He said Noah's people were trying to turn the wedding into another investigation." "Noah's people did not send me to Daniel. I contacted him because a document appeared at my office." "What document?" "You already knew the name of Gordon Pike's shop." Brianna went quiet. Noah remained on my other call, listening without interrupting. I could hear traffic moving around his car, but he did not tell me what to ask. We had agreed I would not manage the conversation for everyone else, and he would not speak through me. "Did you see Dad put the key back?" I asked. "Yes." "When?" "The next morning." "What time?" "I don't know. It was early." "Were you downstairs?" "I couldn't sleep." "Why couldn't you sleep?" "Tessa, stop." "You called me?" "I called because Dad is furious, and when he gets like this, he starts deciding what everyone remembers." That sentence sounded less like an explanation than a warning. "Where had the key been before he returned it?" "I don't know." "You knew enough to ask whether he told me." "I saw him open the drawer. He put the red-tagged key inside and told me it had never left the house." My mouth went dry. "Did he say why?" "He said the police would ask who had access to the car. He said Noah had used it that afternoon, so we should not complicate things with irrelevant details." "You were 18, not 8. You understood what irrelevant details meant." "You think I don't know that?" "I think you are still choosing which part to tell me." Brianna began crying, but the sound did not answer anything. I kept my voice level. "Who drove the SUV?" The line went dead. I stared at the screen until Noah spoke through my other call. "She confirmed Raymond returned the key." "Yes." "She also knew Gordon's name." "Yes." "But she did not confess." "No." That distinction mattered. Brianna had confirmed 2 facts, not the entire crime. I had spent too many years watching my father turn implication into certainty. I would not repeat his methods simply because the implication now pointed where I expected. "I'm sending the recording of the call to Maya," I said. "Was it recorded?" "My phone logs all incoming calls to the legal archive after the consent warning." Ohio allowed a participant in a conversation to record it, but Maya had insisted I use a service that announced recording at the beginning anyway. Brianna had remained on the line after the automated notice. Noah was silent for a moment. "Go home," he said. "Do not drive while you are building a case in your head." "I'm not building a case." "You are already doing it." He was right. I drove the 12 minutes to our apartment without calling anyone else. Noah arrived shortly after me carrying 2 paper bags from the Thai restaurant near his office. He set them on the counter while I opened my laptop. "I bought dinner," he said. "I need 20 minutes. "You said that Tuesday." "This is different." "It always is." I looked at the screen. Maya had emailed scans of the repair order and the dispatch log, each labeled unverified pending authentication. Beside them, I had opened a map of Cedar Grove, and a photograph of the kitchen drawer from an old family insurance inventory. The cracked red tag was visible in the picture. "I'm trying to see whether her statement works," I said. Brianna admitted Raymond put the key back. "She did not say where the car was. She hung up when you asked who drove. That is suspicious, not proof." Noah removed his coat and draped it over the chair. "Tessa, dinner is getting cold. My father called dispatch 8 minutes before you called emergency services. Gordon's order was written before sunrise. If I know how long it took to reach the shop, I can determine how early Raymond had the vehicle. And then what? Then we know whether he had time to find it by chance." Noah pulled out the chair opposite me but did not sit. "You want to get married tomorrow, or do you want to win?" The question hit harder than I expected. This is not about winning. You have 3 screens open, food on the counter, and a wedding in less than 24 hours. A man lost 11 years because my family arranged the facts against him. I was that man. You don't need to explain the stakes to me. Then why are you asking me to stop? I'm asking whether you know how. The defensive answer rose immediately. I am the reason this evidence is being handled correctly. Noah's expression closed. The sentence sounded like my father. Not in content, but in structure. I had taken one useful action and turned it into permission to control the pace of everything around it. I shut the laptop. "I'm sorry." Noah sat down at last. "I don't want you to ignore the evidence," he said. "I want one day of our life that is not scheduled around what Raymond Ward did." I thought if I could complete the timeline before the wedding, I could keep it from following us into tomorrow. It will follow us whether the map is finished or not. I looked toward the 2 paper bags. When I cannot fix something, I organize it. I know. And when I organize it, I stop asking whether anyone else wants to live inside the plan. I know that too. He unpacked the food. We agreed that from noon on Friday until breakfast Saturday, neither of us would discuss the investigation unless there was an immediate legal or safety issue. Maya could receive evidence. Our attorneys could act. We would not turn the ceremony, photographs, or reception into an emergency strategy meeting. It was not an agreement to pretend nothing had happened. It was a boundary around one day. After dinner, I reopened the laptop, but this time Noah sat beside me. The timeline was less dramatic than the truth it suggested. Raymond had called county dispatch shortly before midnight. Gordon Pike's repair order had been opened at 4:48 the following morning. Gordon's old shop stood 23 minutes from my parents' house, but more than 30 minutes from the service road where Brianna had abandoned the SUV. According to an archived business listing, the shop normally opened at 7. The repair order existed more than 2 hours earlier. Raymond could not have driven around Cedar Grove hoping to stumble upon a damaged vehicle, taken it to a closed garage, persuaded the owner to begin work before dawn, and returned home in time to place the key in the drawer unless someone had told him where the SUV was hidden and arranged access to the shop. That did not yet prove Brianna was driving. It proved Raymond's involvement began before the police contacted our family. I closed the map and turned to Noah. There is something about the key I need to say without the courtroom version around it. He waited. "You know I testified that Brianna asked for the spare key." "Yes. I told myself she only wanted her jacket. That part is true. But I also knew she had been drinking." Noah looked at me without moving. "She smelled like alcohol," I continued. Her face was flushed. I still handed her the key because I did not believe she would drive. The next morning, when I saw it in the drawer, I asked Dad whether she had returned it. He said she had. I accepted that because I wanted the question closed. "You told the police she borrowed it." "I did. But when Raymond said she returned it before the crash, you backed his version." "Yes." "Did you believe him?" "I believed that the key being in the drawer meant he must be right." "That is not what I asked." I forced myself not to retreat into wording. I had doubts. I thought Brianna might have taken the car for a short drive. I did not think she hit Daniel, but I knew Dad was answering too quickly. I let his certainty replace mine. Noah stood and walked to the window. I did not follow him. For years, I had imagined honesty as a door that opened once. In reality, it opened in layers, and each layer revealed another place where fear had shaped memory. "You were 25, Noah said. "You knew your sister was drinking, and you gave her access to a vehicle." "Yes." "You knew Raymond was controlling the interview." "Yes." "You still trusted him over me." "Yes." He turned around. "I need time to be angry about that without you deciding it means I'm leaving." "I understand." Do you? I am trying to. His face tightened. I'm not asking you to carry what Brianna did, I'm not asking you to carry what Raymond did, but I cannot marry a version of you that turns every failure into something your father caused. I don't want you to. I also cannot spend tomorrow reassuring you that confession makes everything even. It doesn't. The answer did not soothe him, and I did not add another. Noah took his coat from the chair. I'm going to walk. Do you want me to come? No. Will you come back tonight? He paused at the door. Yes. I said I needed time, not an exit. After he left, I did not open the map again. At 7:15, Maya called. She had located Gordon Pike in a town about 40 miles north of Cedar Grove. He was retired and living with his daughter. He remembers Raymond bringing in a damaged ward vehicle before normal hours, Maya said. He remembers cash, a broken headlamp, and a young woman waiting outside or in another vehicle. He will not swear which daughter it was, and he does not remember exact dialogue. That is less than the note says, which is why we do not improve his memory for him. Gordon did remember how the shop's paperwork worked. Each order had 3 sheets. A white original for the customer, a yellow shop copy, and a blue carbon sheet used at the workstation. The number on my copy matched the sequence used that summer. When Gordon sold the shop, boxed records were transferred to a commercial storage unit. Some had been damaged by water. Others might still exist. He is willing to let an investigator or record service inspect the boxes, Maya said. Not you, not Noah, and not a reporter. That is exactly what I want. Maya also reminded me that on Tuesday afternoon, after receiving the anonymous document, she had sent a limited preservation notice to Raymond, Elaine, Ward Road Safety Foundation, and the Foundation's independent counsel. It instructed them not to delete, alter, transfer, or destroy records related to the SUV, Gordon Pike Auto, Daniel's assistance payments, Noah's case, or communications about the current campaign. At that point, the notice was precautionary, she said. After Brianna's call, it matters more. Noah returned shortly before 9. His hair was damp from a light rain, and his face remained guarded. I told him what Gordon remembered, and what he did not. I also told him about the preservation notice. No surprises? He asked. No surprises. He nodded, then went to shower. We did not resolve the argument before bed. He slept beside me, but there was space between us, and I let it remain. Not every honest conversation deserved an immediate embrace. At 10:30 the next morning, while I was packing the garment bag for the greenhouse, Maya called again. Elaine contacted me through the email address on the preservation notice, she said. She attached a document Raymond wants her to sign. The file was titled Voluntary Affidavit of Elaine Ward. According to the draft, Elaine had noticed the damaged SUV after midnight in 2011, taken it to Gordon Pike's shop without Raymond's knowledge, paid for the repairs herself, and hidden the matter from her husband to protect Brianna from suspicion. The statement claimed Raymond learned about the repairs years later. My mother had not signed it. What does she say? I asked. Only that Raymond told her this would keep the family from being destroyed. Maya forwarded me a read-only copy. The metadata showed the file had been created on Raymond's home computer at 8:12 the previous night. That was more than 24 hours after his attorney and the Foundation Counsel received the preservation notice. Raymond was not merely defending an old account. He was writing a new one after being formally told the records might be reviewed. Noah read the draft beside me. He is giving your mother the entire crime, he said. Not the entire crime. Only the parts he thinks can still be traced. My phone vibrated before I finished the sentence. The message came from Brianna. Dad says Mom will take the fall. I think I'm next. Brianna's message arrived less than 24 hours before my wedding. Dad says Mom will take the fall. I think I'm next. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Maya, and did not reply. Brianna had confirmed enough to show that Raymond was trying to divide the family into possible defendants, but she had still avoided the one question that mattered most. I was not going to spend the night before my wedding coaxing a confession from someone who already knew how to reach her own attorney. Friday morning was cool and dry, 55 degrees by noon, with pale sunlight moving across the windows of our apartment. Noah made coffee while I checked the weather once, confirmed the florist's arrival time, and then put my phone inside the zippered pocket of my overnight bag. There were no new messages from my parents. I did not send another one. The distance between Noah and me from the night before had not vanished, but it had changed. It no longer felt like a threat to the wedding. It felt like unfinished work that both of us had agreed to face without turning one difficult conversation into proof that we should abandon everything we had rebuilt. At 10:30, Leah Marino called from Second Chapter Initiative. The daytime version of the campaign was already running downtown. The wedding version remained scheduled for 8:30 that night, but she needed our final confirmation that the release still stood. I handed the phone to Noah first. "Do you still want it?" I asked. He read the final layout again. "Yes. The campaign is about what comes after release, not about proving anything to Raymond." I agree with him. Leah recorded both approvals and emailed us a confirmation. The design, text, image specifications, and digital schedule had all been prepared weeks earlier. The only unfinished element was the photograph we would select after the ceremony. No one was waiting to create a billboard from nothing in 15 minutes. Before we left the apartment, Noah adjusted the cuff of his dark suit and looked at me across the living room. "I meant what I said last night," he told me. "I am still angry about the key. I know, and I am not asking you to stop being angry. I also meant it when I said I was coming back." I picked up my garment bag. "Then we can get married without pretending either statement cancels the other." The community greenhouse stood 12 minutes from our apartment, a long glass structure beside a public garden just beginning to show spring color. The staff had closed the interior panels against the wind, and the air smelled of damp soil, rosemary, and the white lilies arranged along the aisle. 72 chairs faced a simple wooden arch. There was no raised stage, no dramatic staircase, and no place for anyone's absence to become the center of the room unless I allowed it. The 2 cards marked Mom and Dad were still on the front row when I arrived. I left them there while the photographer took detail shots and the coordinator checked the seating list. I did not keep looking toward the entrance. I greeted guests, signed the final catering count, and spent 10 quiet minutes with Noah in a side room while our witnesses reviewed the marriage license. At 4:50, the coordinator approached me with the 2 cards in her hand. "We can leave these until the processional starts," she said, "or I can remove them now." Through the glass doors, I could see the parking area. My parents' car was not there. Brianna's was not there either. Aunt Marlene stood near the first row holding her phone. She had taken a photograph of the empty seats a few minutes earlier because, as she later told me, she wanted proof when Raymond inevitably claimed he had not been invited. I took the cards from the coordinator and looked at the names one final time. For 6 weeks, those seats had represented a choice my parents were free to make. With 10 minutes remaining, I was no longer willing to let their choice occupy space that belonged to people who had shown up. "Give the seats to someone who came," I said. I folded both cards and placed them inside the seating folder. I did not tear them, throw them away, or make a speech. The decision did not need an audience to be permanent. A moment later, the venue attendant opened the accessible side entrance. Daniel Mercer rolled inside wearing a navy suit, followed by a staff member who held the door but did not touch his chair. Conversation near the entrance softened as people recognized him. I walked toward him and stopped at a respectful distance. "You came," I said. "I said I had the invitation. I did not say what I planned to do with it. You do not owe anyone an explanation." "I understand that." He glanced toward the front row. "Marlene told me there was an open seat. There is now." Daniel looked past me toward Noah, who had remained near the side room instead of rushing forward. Neither man tried to manufacture a reconciliation for the guests. "I listened to the emergency call again last night," Daniel said. "He stayed until the ambulance came. I wanted to say that where he could hear it." Noah approached only after Daniel nodded to him. "You stayed beside the road," Daniel said. "That does not erase the fight, but it belongs in the truth." Noah's voice was quiet. "Thank you for saying it." There was no embrace. Daniel took one of the front row seats, and the other went to the mentor, who had helped Noah complete his job training certification after release. The people sitting closest to us were not there because of blood or obligation. They were there because they had made a choice. At 5 o'clock, Noah and I entered the greenhouse together. I did not look at the doors. I noticed the warmth of his hand, the faint scrape of my dress over the stone floor, and the late sunlight breaking into narrow bands across the aisle. When we reached the arch, The empty spaces I had worried about were no longer empty. Our vows did not mention prison, my father, or the investigation. Noah promised never to confuse silence with peace. I promised not to decide what truth he could bear before giving him the chance to hear it. Neither promise claimed we would never fail. We promised to correct ourselves before failure became a way of life. When the officiant pronounced us married, Noah smiled at me with relief rather than triumph. I kissed the man I had chosen, not the past I wished I could repair. The reception moved through dinner, brief speeches, and music played low enough for Daniel to remain without being overwhelmed. My phone stayed with the coordinator. No one interrupted us with questions about Raymond, and I did not ask whether he had posted anything. At 7:38, our photographer sent 3 horizontal images already cropped to the dimensions Leah had provided. Noah and I reviewed them together on a tablet. We selected one taken beneath the greenhouse roof after the ceremony. My hand rested against his chest, and neither of us was looking toward the camera as if waiting for permission. Leah inserted the image into the approved layout, sent us the final proof, and received our confirmation at 7:52. The digital advertising vendor acknowledged the scheduled update for 8:30. The entire process took minutes because the campaign infrastructure had been built long before our wedding day. At 8:15, guests began leaving. Aunt Marlene and Uncle Peter were staying at a downtown hotel near the Billboard, so they left before us. Raymond and Elaine were attending a donor dinner at another hotel on the same block. My parents had been too busy for my wedding, but not too busy to appear at an event where Raymond would be introduced as the founder of the Ward Road Safety Foundation. At 8:31, Leah showed us a live vendor confirmation that the billboard had changed. The screen displayed the photograph we had chosen beneath the words, "Just married, Noah and Tessa Bennett, a new chapter begins today." It was not a message to my family. It was part of a campaign about the life Noah had been allowed to reclaim. The confrontation happened without my involvement. Marlene saw my parents leaving the donor dinner, just as the billboard changed. She raised her phone and recorded Raymond standing beneath our wedding photograph, while several relatives who had attended the reception recognized him on the sidewalk. Uncle Peter asked the first question. "Raymond, why weren't you there?" My mother looked toward the hotel entrance. My father said the situation was private. Marlene answered, "You made it public when you told people Tessa excluded you." Someone posted the billboard photograph in the extended family chat. A cousin who had been at the greenhouse wrote that my parents received formal invitations and that 2 front-row seats had carried their names until 10 minutes before the ceremony. Marlene added the photograph she had taken before I removed the cards. The messages began after that. "Why weren't you there? Did you really refuse your daughter's wedding? Why did you tell us she did not invite you?" I did not post the invitation, the certified mail receipt, or Raymond's text calling my marriage a disgrace. I did not have to. People who had witnessed the day spoke for themselves. At 9:12, Raymond published a statement through the foundation's social media account. He claimed Noah and I had excluded our family, exploited Daniel's injuries, and used a charitable campaign to pressure my parents into endorsing a disputed version of the case. The first claim was demonstrably false. We had the invitations, delivery confirmation, unanswered response cards, family chat messages, and photographs of the reserved seats. The second was more careful. Daniel had not appeared in the billboard or campaign materials, but Raymond phrased the accusation as moral concern rather than a factual statement. At 9:26, Leah called. Ward Foundation filed a formal complaint with 2 coalition sponsors, she said. The daytime life after exoneration campaign will continue, but we are pausing the wedding version while independent counsel reviews their allegations. Noah looked at me from across the nearly empty reception room. "Do not fight them through the organization tonight," he said. "I won't use the organization to answer them tonight." Leah forwarded the complaint to Maya, Noah's attorney, and us. The document came from an official Ward Foundation account and carried Raymond's electronic approval. Attached was a file titled Case Background and Family Safety Concerns. I opened the first page. The report stated that on the night Daniel was struck, I had personally handed the spare SUV key to Noah Bennett after witnessing him drinking and threatening Daniel. I read the sentence twice. I had handed that key to Brianna. The foundation had just submitted a version of the story that none of them had ever used before. The first morning of my marriage began with 2 untouched suitcases beside the front door and a formal accusation open on our kitchen table. Noah and I had planned to leave at 9 for 3 quiet days in Hocking Hills. Instead, we moved the reservation back 24 hours. We did not cancel the trip, unpack our bags, or surrender the first week of our marriage to Raymond. We gave ourselves 1 day to respond to the immediate threat, then we intended to leave. Leah called at 8:15. Independent counsel for Second Chapter Initiative had paused only the wedding image while reviewing Ward Foundation's complaint. The main Life After Exoneration campaign remained active. "We can remove Noah entirely until the review is finished," she said. "No one will interpret that as an admission." "I would," I replied. "Raymond filed a false report, and now Noah is the one being removed." Noah stood at the counter pouring coffee. He set the pot down harder than necessary. Leah heard it through the speaker. "Noah," she said, "this is your image. What do you want?" He did not answer immediately. I had already begun forming an argument about why retreat would reward my father. But the question had not been addressed to me. "I want the daytime campaign to continue," Noah said. "Pause the wedding image during the review. Give counsel the invitation records, the family chat, and Daniel's written confirmation that he was not used in the advertisement." I turned toward him. "You should not have to lose the wedding image because Raymond lied. It is my decision too. I know." "No, you know it after you have already decided what my decision should be." The words were not cruel. That made them harder to dismiss. I sat down. "You're right." Noah continued speaking to Leah. "I will not withdraw from the campaign. I will participate in a transparent review. If the sponsors decide the wedding version followed the consent policy, it can return. Until then, no public fight on my behalf without my approval." Leah agreed. She promised to preserve the complaint, email headers, access records, release forms, and every version of the Billboard design. When the call ended, I closed the statement I had been drafting. Noah looked at the screen. "Was that for the organization?" "It was a response to Raymond. Written by you." "Yes." "About my case." "Yes." I deleted it. It was not surrender. It was recognizing that intelligence without restraint could become another form of control. My father had spent 14 years speaking for everyone in the family. I would not defeat him by becoming more efficient at the same habit. Maya arrived before 10 with Marisol Vega, a forensic accountant who specialized in nonprofit compliance. Maya made the boundaries clear before Marisol opened her laptop. Marisol represented neither Noah nor me. She had been retained only to review public records and materials, lawfully provided by Second Chapter's counsel. She would not access Ward Foundation's bank account, internal server, donor database, or private ledger without authorization. "The complaint itself tells us where it came from," Marisol said. "The email headers trace it to Ward Foundation's domain. The PDF properties show it was created under the Foundation Communications account and electronically approved through Raymond's profile." "That proves the source," Maya said, "not the truth of the contents or Raymond's criminal intent." Marisol nodded. "Exactly." She opened archived charity registrations, federal filings, and annual reports that Ward Foundation had posted publicly over the years. The organization had been incorporated in 2013, 2 years after Daniel was struck and about a year after Noah's conviction. Its stated mission was road safety education, victim support, and youth outreach. The early reports featured photographs of Raymond beside Daniel's parents. One caption called him the officer who transformed personal tragedy into community action. The tragedy had never been Raymond's to transform. Marisol found an entry in the Foundation's 2014 state filing for approximately $8,000 in outreach vehicle and equipment expenses. The amount alone meant nothing. Charities paid for vans, display trailers, maintenance, and event equipment all the time. Then she opened an archived impact report from the same year. One page thanked Gordon Pike Auto as a community outreach vendor. I leaned closer to the screen. Gordon's shop had no outreach program. "That is an inference," Marisol said. "We need the internal invoice and payment record before calling it false." What could the payment have been? A legitimate repair to a Foundation vehicle, a sponsorship, reimbursement for donated work, or something improperly classified. Public records only tell us the foundation reported an expense and publicly connected Gordon's business to its outreach operations. Noah studied the filing date. The shop repaired the Ward SUV in 2011. The foundation did not exist until 2013. Which means this was not the original cash payment, Marisol said. If it relates to that repair, it would have to be a later reimbursement or an attempt to move a private expense into the charity's books. That distinction closed one possible timeline error and opened another question. Raymond may have paid cash before dawn, then used the foundation years later to return the money or disguise the transaction after Noah's conviction. Marisol also found legal expenses reported under victim advocacy. The public filings did not name the client, so we could not claim they paid Brianna's personal attorney. But the amount appeared in a year when Brianna had been dealing with a private legal dispute. Again, it was a reason to audit, not proof of theft. My phone rang while Marisol was explaining the difference. Brianna's name appeared on the screen. I looked at Noah. She may be calling about her message. I stay, he said. I answered and immediately told Brianna that Noah, Maya, and Marisol were in the room. Are you recording this? She asked. Not without your consent. I have disabled the call recording service. I don't want strangers listening. Maya is my attorney. Marisol can leave. Noah stays because this concerns his life. Marisol gathered her laptop and stepped into the hall. Brianna remained silent long enough that I thought she might disconnect. Then I heard a child's voice in the distance. Lucas asked whether she had found his blue sweatshirt. Brianna told him to check the dryer. A door closed a moment later. He saw the billboard online, she said. One of his friends showed him. I waited. He asked why I wasn't at your wedding. What did you tell him? That adults sometimes have disagreements. You called my marriage a disgrace in front of the entire family chat. I know what I wrote. Then answer the question you avoided yesterday. Who drove the SUV? Her breath caught. I was driving. The sentence was so quiet that I checked the screen to make sure the call had not ended. Noah did not move. Maya picked up a pen but did not begin writing until Brianna continued. I took the spare key, she said. I told you I needed my jacket. I drove because I wanted to meet some friends at a house outside town. You had been drinking. I had 2 drinks. You were 18. 2 drinks were already illegal. And you smelled like more than 2. I don't know exactly how many. People kept filling the same cup. That was an explanation of how she lost count, not a denial. What happened on County Road 9? I asked. I looked down for a second. My phone lit up. When I looked back, someone was near the shoulder. Daniel. I did not know it was him until later. Did you stop? I hit the brakes. I got out, but he wasn't moving and there was blood. I panicked. Did you call emergency services? I called Dad. Noah turned away from the table. What did Raymond tell you to do? Maya asked. Brianna's voice tightened. I'm not giving a statement to your lawyer. She asked a question, I said. You may answer or call your own attorney. Brianna began crying. He told me to drive to the old county maintenance shed near the service road. He met me there. He put me in his car and told me not to touch anything else. What happened to the SUV? I don't know every detail. He took my phone, he drove me home, Mom helped me change clothes, and Daniel remained beside the road. I thought Dad had called someone. Did he say that? He said he would handle it. The phrase contained the entire Ward family system. Brianna created the emergency. Raymond took control. Elaine cleaned the visible damage. Everyone accepted that handling a problem mattered more than helping the person harmed by it. Noah found Daniel 8 minutes after Dad called county dispatch, I said. Your father knew where to ask because you had already called him. Yes. Why did you let Noah go to prison? I was 18. You were 19 by the time he went to trial. Dad said Noah would take a plea. He didn't. Then Dad said the state would convict him whether I spoke or not. He said changing my story would make me look guilty and destroy everyone. It would have revealed that you were guilty. Brianna's crying stopped. You think I don't live with that? I think Noah lived in prison with it. Daniel lives in a body changed by it. You lived in a house your father protected. I have Lucas now. Lucas does not erase what happened before he was born. I could lose everything. That is why you need your own lawyer. Not Dad's lawyer, not the Foundation's counsel, and not Maya. What happens if I confess officially? I cannot promise you immunity, custody outcomes, privacy, forgiveness, or protection from consequences. So you won't help me? I am helping you by refusing to lie. Brianna lowered her voice. If I tell the truth, will you still be my sister? I looked at Noah. He was staring out the window, his reflection faint against the morning light. Tell the truth, because Noah and Daniel deserve it, I said. Do not use it to purchase a relationship with me. She ended the call without saying goodbye. Maya immediately wrote a memorandum recording the time, participants, and what each person remembered. Because the call had not been recorded, the memorandum was not a substitute for Brianna's sworn statement. It was a record of what we had heard and a reason for her attorney to contact investigators. Noah walked into the bedroom and closed the door. I wanted to follow him, but I did not decide that he needed me simply because I needed to do something. I gave him 20 minutes, then knocked. Come in, he said. He was sitting on the edge of the bed with his wedding jacket folded beside him. She admitted it, I said. I heard. What do you need? I need her to say it where it counts. She will have to. No, she may decide fear still costs less than truth. I sat in the chair near the window rather than beside him. I won't hold the confession privately for her. He nodded. And I am not canceling our trip, I added. We leave tomorrow unless an attorney tells us there is an immediate reason not to. That earned the first trace of warmth in his expression. Good. By late afternoon, Brianna's independent attorney contacted Maya and confirmed that she had scheduled a confidential consultation for Monday. No immunity had been offered. No sworn statement had been prepared. Raymond moved faster. At 4:40, Brianna forwarded her attorney a document Raymond had sent her from his personal email. The title was Proposed Family Confidentiality and Support Agreement. He offered to pay up to $25,000 toward independent criminal counsel, provide temporary living expenses, and hire a media attorney to protect Lucas's name. In return, Brianna would agree not to revise her prior statements, not to surrender personal devices or family emails voluntarily, and to support the claim that Elaine had acted alone. The agreement had arrived after Raymond received Maya's preservation notice. At 5:12, I received my own proposal. Raymond offered to reimburse the $22,000 Noah and I had spent on the wedding. Recommend a $50,000 grant to Second Chapter Initiative and issue a public statement welcoming Noah into the family. The conditions appeared on the second page. I had to withdraw every complaint involving Ward Foundation, request that Noah leave the Billboard campaign, return the repair order, and destroy all photographs, scans, and electronic copies derived from it. I forwarded the email, attachment, and headers to Maya without responding. She called less than 5 minutes later. The money is not the most dangerous part, she said. A settlement offer by itself is not proof of a crime. What is? The fact that he received a preservation notice, then instructed you in writing to destroy all copies. By Monday morning, Raymond had offered money to 3 women in exchange for 3 different versions of the truth. He wanted Elaine to swear she had moved and repaired the SUV without his knowledge. He wanted Brianna to preserve her old statement and support the claim that our mother acted alone. He wanted me to return the repair order, destroy every copy, remove Noah from the campaign, and call the matter settled. None of us had accepted. Brianna's attorney, Stephanie Cole, arranged the meeting at her office in downtown Columbus. Maya attended as my lawyer. Noah's civil rights attorney joined by secure video for the portion involving his former conviction, but Noah chose not to attend. This is not a family mediation, Stephanie said before anyone began. No immunity has been promised. Brianna is not signing a sworn statement today. We are creating a privileged attorney work product and determining what she may later disclose through the proper process. Because I was present, Brianna understood that anything she told me personally would not be protected by her attorney-client privilege. Stephanie asked twice whether she still wanted me in the room. Brianna looked exhausted. She wore no makeup, and the skin beneath her eyes was gray. She needs to hear it from me, she said. I did not thank her. Telling the truth after 14 years was necessary, but necessity was not generosity. Stephanie placed a recorder in the center of the table. Everyone consented to an internal recording that would remain with her office unless Brianna later authorized disclosure. Start with the key, Stephanie said. Brianna folded her hands so tightly that her knuckles whitened. I asked Tessa for the spare because I said my jacket was in the SUV. The jacket was there, but that wasn't why I wanted the key. What did you intend to do? Stephanie asked. Drive to a house outside town. Had you consumed alcohol? Yes. How much? I don't know exactly. I had a plastic cup. People kept adding things to it. She did not claim to remember the number of drinks, the exact time she left, or every turn she took. Stephanie used phone records and the old dispatch timeline to anchor the gaps instead of allowing Brianna to fill them with guesses. Brianna left my parents' house sometime between 10:40 and 10:50 that night. A tower record placed her phone near County Road 9 shortly before 11:45. I looked down when my phone lit up, she said. When I looked back, Daniel was near the shoulder. Did you see him before impact? Stephanie asked. Only for a second. What did you do after the collision? I stopped farther down the road. I got out. The headlight was broken, and the bumper was hanging loose. I walked back far enough to see someone on the ground. Did you approach him? No. Did you call emergency services? No. Her voice cracked, but Stephanie did not rescue her from the answer. Who did you call? My father. Raymond told her to drive to the abandoned county maintenance shed beside an old service road. He reached her within minutes in his personal car. He looked at the SUV first, Brianna said. He asked whether anyone had seen me. Then he took my phone and told me to sit in his car. Did he ask about Daniel? I said. Stephanie glanced at me but allowed the question. He asked whether the person moved. What did you say? I said I didn't know. And then? He told me he would handle it. Raymond drove Brianna home. Elaine took her upstairs through the side entrance, helped her change clothes, and placed the blouse she had been wearing in the laundry sink. Was there blood on it? Maya asked. I don't remember blood. There was dirt near the hem and something dark on one sleeve. Mom washed it before I saw it again. Raymond left the house with the spare key. Brianna saw him return before sunrise and place it inside the kitchen drawer. He told me that Noah had driven the SUV earlier, she said. He said the police would focus on him because of the fight with Daniel. Did he say Noah was innocent? Maya asked. He said innocence was not the same as being harmless. That sounded exactly like my father. He did not need to persuade himself that Noah had driven. He only needed to decide Noah was an acceptable person to blame. Brianna claimed Raymond initially told her Noah would be questioned, frightened, and probably offered a minor plea agreement. When Noah refused to confess, Raymond's explanation changed. He told Brianna that admitting the truth would send both daughters to prison because I had handed her the key. I believed him, she said. You chose to believe him, I replied. Her eyes lifted to mine. I was scared. So was Noah. I know, he was scared for 11 years. Stephanie interrupted before the conversation became an argument. Brianna, are you prepared to allow me to contact the special prosecutor's intake office and discuss a formal proffer? Brianna pressed a tissue beneath one eye. What happens to Lucas? No one in this room can promise a custody result, Stephanie said. A criminal admission does not automatically terminate parental rights, but your former husband may use it in existing proceedings. We will address that separately. You do not receive immunity by mentioning your child. Brianna turned back to me. If I do this officially, will you ever speak to me again? I had expected the question. It still hurt to hear it. You need to tell the truth because Noah and Daniel deserve an official record, I said. Not because you think a confession buys you a sister. So that is a no? It means I will decide our relationship after you stop using it as payment. She lowered her face. After another hour, Brianna authorized Stephanie to begin preparing a formal proffer. She did not sign a sworn statement that morning. Her attorney would first compare her account with phone records, the dispatch log, the repair documents, and any evidence preserved by the state. Maya and I left with no copy of the internal recording. We received only a signed acknowledgement that Brianna had retained independent counsel and authorized contact with the reviewing authorities. That was less dramatic than a confession across a dinner table. It was also more useful. Noah and I left for Hocking Hills that afternoon. We spent 3 days in a rented cabin surrounded by bare branches and early spring rain. I kept my phone on for calls from Maya, but I did not place it beside my plate during dinner or check it each time Noah walked into another room. We hiked one short trail after the rain stopped. Noah's knee stiffened on steep ground, so we turned back before the overlook. He did not apologize, and I did not tell him we could continue if he pushed harder. That night, We sat near the cabin window and listened to water strike the roof. "You told me about the meeting before organizing what I should think about it," he said. "I am trying. I noticed. I'm not asking that to erase the times I didn't. I know. Our marriage did not become stronger because the investigation disappeared. It became stronger because we stopped allowing every difficult truth to become an emergency one person had to control." We returned Thursday evening. The next morning, Maya and Noah's attorney met Gordon Pike at a commercial storage unit behind the building where his old repair shop had once operated. I did not attend. Gordon had agreed to provide access to counsel and an independent records technician, not to me or anyone connected to the Ward family. Maya later showed us photographs of collapsed cardboard boxes, water-stained ledgers, and bundles of yellow work orders fused together along their lower edges. Most of the records were unusable. A narrow section from the summer of 2011 had survived. The order numbers surrounding the blue carbon copy matched Gordon's sequence. A parts ledger listed a left headlamp assembly and bumper brackets under the same number. The entry carried a handwritten cash notation and a start time of 4:48 in the morning. Gordon would confirm only 3 things under oath. Raymond brought in the damaged Ward SUV before normal business hours. He paid cash and asked Gordon not to create an insurance claim. A distressed young woman was nearby, but Gordon could not reliably identify whether she was Brianna, me, or someone else. He did not remember exact dialogue from 14 years earlier. The handwritten note on the carbon sheet would need separate authentication. The surviving records did not prove who drove the SUV. They proved the repair order was genuine and that Raymond possessed the damaged vehicle before police inspected it. By Friday afternoon, Ward Foundation's independent counsel had also responded to the preservation notice. The board's audit committee authorized a limited review of records connected to Gordon Pike Auto, legal expenses involving Ward family members, and payments made to Daniel's family. Marisol presented the first results to us with the same caution she had used before. In 2014, the foundation reimbursed Raymond $8,200 for what he described as a vehicle safety outreach expense. The reimbursement was supported by an invoice bearing Gordon Pike Auto's name. Gordon denied issuing that invoice. The address and tax number belonged to his shop, but the document format did not match any of his surviving invoices. The payment had not funded the original repair in 2011. It appeared to reimburse Raymond years later, after the foundation existed, while disguising a private expense as charitable outreach. A separate group of payments, classified as victim advocacy legal services, had gone to a firm that represented Brianna during a private family law dispute. There might have been a lawful explanation, but the foundation's public reports described the spending as legal support for traffic victims. Then Marisol displayed the email Raymond had sent Daniel's mother after an investigator contacted the family about Noah's appeal. He had reminded her that continued controversy could make future fundraising difficult. 3 days later, the foundation approved another assistance payment. The medical support was real, Marisol said. Daniel's family received equipment and transportation help. The problem is that Raymond used legitimate aid as leverage and reported some expenses in ways the board may not have understood. It was not proof that Daniel's parents had been bribed. It was evidence that Raymond had learned how to make gratitude feel conditional. The board's counsel scheduled an emergency meeting for the following week. Raymond would be required to answer questions, but the audit committee had already restricted his ability to approve payments or delete records. He had not been removed yet. The bylaws required a quorum and formal resolution. That evening, Noah and I ate takeout at our kitchen table. The investigation had moved forward without either of us breaking into an office, threatening a witness, or turning ourselves into detectives. "I used to think the truth had to arrive all at once," I said. Noah opened a carton of rice. "It usually arrives with paperwork. And legal bills. That too." My phone rang before we finished dinner. Elaine's name appeared on the screen. Maya had advised me not to take private evidence calls without notice, so I answered only after activating the recording announcement and telling my mother Noah was present. Elaine did not object. "I sent the envelope," she said. I closed my eyes briefly. "Why?" "Because your father was preparing to blame me." "Where is the original?" "In a records box at the house." She sent 3 photographs while we spoke. One showed a white customer copy from Gordon Pike Auto bearing the same order number as the blue carbon sheet. Another showed an old envelope containing a handwritten parts receipt. The third showed several folders labeled with years and foundation accounts. "How long have you had these?" I asked. "Since 2011. You had proof before Noah's trial." "I had a repair receipt. I did not know what would happen." "You watched what happened. Your father said the case against Noah was stronger than the vehicle. And you believed that for 14 years? Elaine began crying. "I kept the papers because I knew Raymond would protect himself first. I was right. He wants me to sign that affidavit." "You kept them as insurance." "I kept them because I was afraid." "Those are not different answers." She asked whether I could come to the house alone and take the box before Raymond found it. "No. Maya will arrange a lawful transfer through your attorney or the board's counsel. I don't want the police tearing apart the house. This is no longer something you control privately. Tessa, listen to me. The papers are enough to make Raymond apologize. They are enough to force him to tell the truth to the family. We can handle the rest without destroying everyone. Noah already lost 11 years. Daniel has lived with the injuries for 14. The destruction did not begin when you became afraid of consequences." Her voice sharpened through her tears. "You can stop him, but you cannot give this to the state." My mother did not answer when I told her the evidence had to go through an official process. For several seconds, all I heard was her breathing through the phone. Then she said, "You don't understand what this will do." "I understand what keeping it private already did. You think the state cares about Noah more than I do?" "The state does not have to care about him. It has to examine the evidence." Elaine's voice broke. "Your father will destroy me. He is already trying." I reminded her that Raymond had drafted an affidavit placing the repair, the hidden key, and the destruction of evidence entirely on her. He had created it after receiving notice that the records might be reviewed. "If you want legal advice, get your own attorney," I said. "Do not sign anything Dad prepared. Do not move, copy, destroy, or give him access to the box. He doesn't know where it is. Keep it that way." Maya arranged the transfer for Monday morning at her office. Elaine retained an attorney over the weekend, and the attorney attended with her. That mattered. I did not want my mother later claiming I had frightened or manipulated her into surrendering records she did not understand. Noah came with me, but he waited in a separate conference room with his attorney. He had the right to know what entered the case, but Elaine's legal exposure and the terms of her cooperation belonged to her lawyer. My mother arrived carrying a gray plastic records box with a cracked blue lid. She looked smaller than she had at foundation dinners, where she wore tailored jackets and stood beside Raymond beneath banners bearing their last name. At Maya's office, there was nowhere for her to perform the role of loyal wife. Maya began by photographing the closed box from every side. Elaine's attorney confirmed on the record that Elaine had retrieved it from a locked storage cabinet in the Ward home and had kept it under her control until the transfer. Maya placed a numbered evidence seal across the lid, then cut it in front of all of us. She removed each folder one at a time, photographed its position, assigned it an item number, and entered it into a receipt. There was no dramatic music and no single page held above the table like a verdict. There were tax folders, appliance records, foundation statements, old insurance correspondence, and envelopes containing receipts Raymond had assumed no one would ever need again. Near the bottom sat a white customer copy from Gordon Pike Auto. The order number matched the blue carbon sheet mailed to me. The date matched. The listed parts matched. The notation showed cash payment before normal business hours. A second envelope contained a handwritten receipt for the headlamp assembly and bumper hardware. The paper carried Gordon's old shop stamp and a number that corresponded to the surviving parts ledger. Maya did not declare the case solved. She photographed the documents, placed them in clear sleeves, sealed them separately, and had Elaine sign a transfer acknowledgement stating that the originals would not be returned while the review remained active. My mother stared at the white repair order as Maya placed it inside the evidence envelope. "I kept that to protect myself," she said. No one had accused her of anything in that moment, but she had already chosen her defense. Gordon joined us later by secure video with his attorney present. Maya displayed scanned copies rather than exposing the originals again. He confirmed that the order number fit the sequence used by his shop in July 2011. The paper layout, carbon colors, abbreviation style, and parts codes matched his records. The storage ledger independently confirmed that those parts had been assigned to the same job number. He would not claim certainty about every handwritten note. "I recognize the way I wrote quantities," he said. "The sentence at the bottom might be mine." Maya accepted that answer. No one needed a specialist to announce that the ink was exactly 14 years old. The order sequence, surviving ledger, shop format, parts records, Gordon's memory of Raymond arriving before dawn, and the matching white and blue copies supported one another. The evidence was stronger because no single person pretended to know more than he did. After Gordon disconnected, Elaine asked to speak with me. Her attorney remained in the room. Maya stayed as well. Noah did not attend because I refused to make him sit through my mother explaining why she had allowed him to remain in prison. Elaine folded her hands over her purse. "Your father called me from the maintenance shed," she said. "He told me Brianna had been in an accident." "Did he say Daniel was still beside the road?" "He said someone had been hurt." "What did you do?" "I waited by the side door." When he brought Brianna home, her clothes were dirty. She was crying and sick. "You helped her change." "Yes." "You washed the clothes." "Yes." "What happened to the key?" "Raymond took it. He returned it before you came downstairs." "Did you know he had taken the SUV to Gordon?" "Not until later that morning. He gave me the customer receipt and told me to file it somewhere safe." "Why would he give you proof?" "He said police might ask about money or repairs, and he wanted one person to know where everything was." I understood the arrangement. Raymond handled people. Elaine handled paper. He trusted her to preserve his life while believing she would never use the records against him. "When did you know Noah was being blamed?" I asked. "The next morning." "And when did you know he was innocent?" Elaine looked down. "Raymond said the police had other evidence." "That was not my question." She pressed her lips together. "I knew Brianna had driven." "So you knew Noah had not?" "Yes." The word landed without force. 14 years of silence had reduced it to something almost ordinary. "Why didn't you tell his lawyer?" "Raymond said Brianna would go to prison. He said you could be charged because you gave her the key. He said our home would be searched, his pension would be lost, and Daniel's family would sue us for everything." "What did he say would happen to Noah?" "He believed Noah would take a plea." "He didn't." "Then Raymond said the trial would expose Brianna anyway, so we had to stay consistent until it was over." "And after Noah was sentenced?" Elaine's fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. "I thought the appeals would correct it." "They did not." "I know. 11 years passed." "At what point did 11 years become long enough for you to speak?" She began crying, but I did not soften the question. "I was afraid," she said. "Noah was in prison. I had Brianna to protect. Daniel needed care. I needed the truth. Noah needed his life. You chose the person you were willing to lose. I thought keeping the family together was the only thing I could still do. You did not keep us together. You kept us quiet." Elaine wiped her face. "I sent the carbon copy because Raymond was going to blame me. I saw the affidavit on his computer. He had already spoken to an attorney about saying I acted alone. You sent it to save yourself. I also wanted the truth to come out. You wanted enough truth to stop him, but not enough to expose you." She did not deny it. That was the part of my mother's confession I needed to remember. She was finally helping, but the usefulness of her evidence did not transform her motives. A person could do the necessary thing for a selfish reason. The law could still use the document. I did not have to call her brave. Elaine asked whether Maya could use the records to force Raymond into a private agreement. "He could resign from the foundation," she said. "He could apologize to Noah. We could pay Daniel and correct the public statement. No one has to involve prosecutors." "An apology does not repair a criminal record," I said. "Noah's conviction is already gone. The record still does not say who drove, who repaired the vehicle, who pressured witnesses, or who tried to create new statements last week." Elaine looked toward Maya. "What if Raymond signs a confession?" "Then his attorney can decide where to submit it," Maya said. "This office is not negotiating the concealment of evidence." My mother turned back to me. "Do you want him in prison?" "I want the truth examined by people he cannot order around." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I owe you." That afternoon, Maya completed a preliminary evidence packet. It contained authenticated copies of the repair documents, the surviving shop ledger, the CAD timeline, Raymond's recent destruction demand, the unsigned affidavit prepared for Elaine, and Brianna's counsel information. The earlier preservation notice had been a private legal demand sent to the family and foundation. The new packet went to a special prosecutor assigned outside Raymond's former professional network. Maya did not promise charges. She requested a formal review of the old cover-up and the recent attempts to influence witnesses and destroy records after notice of preservation. The special prosecutor acknowledged receipt that evening. Daniel met us the next day at his attorney's office. His financial advisor attended by video because the foundation payments had been woven through years of medical and transportation expenses. Marisol explained what the audit had found without suggesting Daniel or his parents had done anything wrong. The ramp, vehicle conversion, therapy equipment, and transportation support had been real. Daniel had needed them. His family had applied through procedures that appeared legitimate. The problem was how Raymond used those payments afterward. He featured Daniel's image in fundraising materials. He described the Ward Foundation as an answer to the same tragedy he had helped conceal. When Noah's appeal gained attention, Raymond reminded Daniel's mother that controversy might damage future fundraising. Daniel read the email again. "My parents thought he was warning us about donors," he said. "He may claim that was all he meant," Marisol replied. "He knew they depended on the assistance." Yes. Daniel's attorney asked whether any payment had required a confidentiality agreement. None had. There was no signed contract buying silence. There was a pattern of legitimate aid being used to create pressure and public loyalty. Daniel authorized his attorney to provide the special prosecutor with the email, assistance letters, billing records, and the dispatch materials in his possession. He kept the originals under his counsel's control. "I am not giving the money back," he said. "No one asked you to," I replied. "I need that clear." The ramp helped me enter my parents' house. The vehicle conversion let my mother take me to appointments. I will not pretend those things were dirty because Raymond attached his name to them. You should not. He looked toward the framed foundation photograph included in the audit packet. Raymond stood behind Daniel's chair with one hand resting on the handle. He called it generosity, Daniel said. It was my medical need, paid with donor money. He used my gratitude as if it belonged to him. The special prosecutor opened a formal review 2 days later and requested assistance from the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation. The notice did not accuse anyone or promise an indictment. It authorized investigators outside Cedar Grove to evaluate the historical evidence, recent witness contacts, and foundation records. Ward Foundation's independent counsel received a subpoena for specified records. A judge also approved an order requiring the preservation of relevant email accounts, financial files, board records, and devices while the subpoena was reviewed. No investigator appeared unexpectedly in my parents' living room. No one was arrested over lunch. The legal machinery moved through signed requests, counsel, deadlines, and records that could no longer be quietly deleted. Brianna signed her revised statement the following morning in Stephanie Cole's office. Her attorney reviewed every page with her before she signed under oath. The statement admitted that she drove the SUV, left Daniel beside the road, called Raymond, and followed his instructions afterward. It did not grant her immunity. It did not decide custody. It placed her name into the official record, where Noah's had stood for 14 years. Raymond responded by requesting an emergency meeting of the Ward Foundation board. His email said the family had been manipulated by outside attorneys and that the matter should be resolved privately, responsibly, and as a family. Maya agreed that I could attend only after Foundation Council confirmed 3 conditions. Enough directors would be present for a quorum. Independent counsel would control the meeting, and every represented person could bring an attorney. No documents would enter or leave the room outside the subpoena process. The original repair order was already with counsel and available to BCI. The morning before the meeting, Maya called Noah and me into her conference room. She placed 3 documents across the table. The first was the unsigned affidavit Raymond had drafted for Elaine, stating that she alone moved and repaired the SUV. The second was the confidentiality agreement he had sent Brianna, offering money and legal support if she preserved her old account and blamed Elaine. The third was the settlement proposal he had sent me, demanding that I destroy the repair copies and withdraw the complaints in exchange for money, a grant, and public acceptance of Noah. Maya aligned the dates at the top of each page. All 3 documents had been created after Raymond received notice to preserve evidence. He told Elaine she acted alone, I said. He told Brianna that Elaine acted alone, Noah replied. and he told me to erase the evidence that could prove neither version was true. Maya rested one finger beside the signatures and email headers. 3 stories, she said. They cannot all be true. The Ward Road Safety Foundation occupied the 2nd floor of a renovated brick building in downtown Cedar Grove. Raymond's name was etched into the glass beside the entrance, directly beneath the words integrity, service, community. By the time Noah and I arrived, an investigator from the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation had already delivered the subpoena to the Foundation's independent counsel. A court-approved preservation order covered specified email accounts, financial files, board records, and devices. No one was allowed to delete or remove relevant material while counsel reviewed what the Foundation was legally required to produce. The original repair orders were not in my purse. Brianna's sworn statement was not in her hands. Maya had made sure every original document was already with the appropriate attorney or investigator. I carried only a folder of copies and the wedding invitation Raymond had once claimed he never received. Noah walked beside me but did not reach for my hand. We had agreed that he would not speak for me if Raymond attacked my role in the past. His silence would not mean abandonment. It would mean he trusted me to answer for myself. Daniel arrived with his attorney through the accessible entrance. He positioned his chair near the end of the conference table, where he could leave without asking anyone to move. He acknowledged Noah with a brief nod, then turned toward the windows. Elaine sat on the opposite side with her lawyer. She wore a navy jacket I recognized from Foundation galas, but she had not fastened the buttons correctly. Brianna sat 2 chairs away from her mother, with Stephanie Cole beside her. The distance between them looked deliberate. Raymond entered last. He wore a gray suit, a dark blue tie, and the small silver Foundation badge he usually pinned near his left lapel. He greeted the board members as if they were arriving for a donor presentation rather than an emergency meeting about his conduct. Margaret Ellis, the board chair, opened the session at 10 o'clock. 6 of the 8 directors were present, satisfying the quorum required under the bylaws. Independent board counsel sat beside her with the subpoena, preservation order, and proposed resolutions arranged in separate folders. Margaret stated that the meeting was not a criminal trial. The board would not determine guilt, impose legal punishment, or interfere with the special prosecutor's review. Its purpose was to decide whether Raymond should retain authority over the Foundation's staff, accounts, records, and public communications while the audit continued. Raymond smiled as though she had just confirmed his innocence. "Then perhaps we can approach this rationally," he said. Board counsel raised one hand. "You will have the opportunity to respond. Personal attacks, witness coaching, or attempts to negotiate the destruction or withholding of evidence will end your presentation." Raymond's smile narrowed. He opened a leather folder and distributed a document titled Family and Community Resolution Proposal. "I have spent 14 years supporting Daniel Mercer and promoting safer roads," he began. "Now personal grievances are being used to dismantle work that has helped hundreds of people." Daniel looked at the printed proposal, but did not pick it up. Raymond continued in the calm voice that had convinced rooms full of donors he was the most reasonable person present. He offered to issue a public statement accepting Noah as my husband. He would recommend a substantial grant to Second Chapter Initiative, create a long-term medical support fund for Daniel, and pay for independent counseling for every member of the Ward family. In exchange, Noah and I would withdraw our complaints against the Foundation. Daniel would decline further participation in the investigation. Brianna and Elaine would treat their earlier statements as products of confusion and family pressure. Everyone would describe the matter as a misunderstanding created by incomplete records. Raymond leaned back. "This protects the Foundation, Daniel's privacy, Noah's future, and my daughter's families. It is not an admission, it is an effort to prevent more damage." Daniel's attorney spoke first. "My client's privacy is not yours to trade." Raymond shifted his attention toward Daniel. "I was trying to protect you." Daniel's hands remained still on the wheels of his chair. "You used my photograph to raise money while you knew the man blamed for hitting me had called for help. That is not established." My attorney gave the official dispatch recording to the special prosecutor. Recordings can be interpreted in many ways. The timestamp cannot. Raymond turned away from him. Margaret asked whether the proposal required anyone to withhold documents requested by subpoena. Raymond's attorney leaned toward him, but Raymond answered before they could speak privately. "It asks the family to stop voluntarily feeding a retaliatory investigation." Board counsel placed a copy of the preservation order on the table. Once documents are covered by lawful process, cooperation is no longer a matter of family preference. Raymond closed his folder. This foundation would not exist without me. That is one of the issues the board is examining, Margaret said. Whether the organization has been treated as a public charity or an extension of your personal authority. For the first time, Raymond's composure slipped. He turned toward Elaine. My wife is the reason these records exist. She took the vehicle to Gordon Pike's shop without my knowledge. She concealed the repair because she believed Brianna might be blamed. Elaine stared at him. You told me you would never say that. I'm not accusing you. I'm explaining what happened. You wrote it before asking whether I would sign. Raymond's attorney whispered something to him. He ignored it. You were frightened and confused, he said to Elaine. You have admitted that your memory is unreliable. Elaine's lawyer placed the unsigned affidavit on the table. This document was created on Mr. Ward's home computer after he received the preservation notice. It states that Mrs. Ward acted entirely alone. She did not sign it. Board counsel checked the email attached to the file. The metadata does not prove who typed every word, she said. It does establish that the document was created through an account registered to Mr. Ward and sent from his personal email after notice that relevant records must be preserved. Raymond pointed toward Elaine. She kept the repair order for 14 years. She sent it anonymously days before the wedding. She was trying to frighten Tessa and force me into a private settlement. Elaine's face hardened. I sent it because you were preparing to bury me under everything you had done. Everything I had done for this family. You mean everything you expected us to suffer for you? Raymond pushed his chair back slightly. I protected Brianna from one terrible mistake. You agreed with every decision. I agreed because you said Noah would take a plea and Daniel would receive care. When neither of those things made your plan acceptable, I kept agreeing because I was afraid of you. You kept the evidence because you intended to use it against me. I kept it because I knew someday you would choose yourself. Raymond looked toward the board members as if Elaine's admission proved his point. My wife has resented my career for years. This is a marital dispute dressed as a public scandal. Board counsel spoke before Elaine could answer. Mr. Ward, address the documents. Do not diagnose your wife's motives. Raymond's gaze moved to Brianna. She was 18. Her mother was the adult who took control that night. Brianna's body stiffened. Raymond continued. Elaine washed the clothing, handled the receipt, and managed what was said afterward. Brianna was a terrified child following her mother's instructions. Stephanie Cole opened a sealed legal envelope. My client has authorized me to confirm that her sworn statement was delivered to the special prosecutor this morning. Raymond stared at his younger daughter. What did you sign? Brianna's voice trembled, but she did not look away. The truth. Your attorney filled your head with a version that will destroy your son's life. My statement says I drove the SUV. I struck Daniel. I left the scene. I called you, and you told me where to hide the vehicle. Raymond looked at Stephanie. You allowed her to sign that without immunity? My client understands that telling the truth does not guarantee protection from consequences. She is not capable of understanding the pressure she is under. Brianna's hands shook against the table. I understood when you offered to pay my legal fees if I kept my old statement. Stephanie placed Raymond's proposed confidentiality agreement beside Elaine's affidavit. The document offered Brianna up to $25,000 for legal expenses and temporary support. It required her not to revise her prior account, not to provide family emails voluntarily, and to support the claim that Elaine acted alone. Raymond spoke quickly. That was an effort to protect my grandson from publicity. It also asked Brianna to preserve a statement she has now sworn was false, board counsel said. I was trying to prevent outside lawyers from exploiting her panic. You were trying to decide which story she was allowed to tell, Brianna said. Raymond's eyes settled on her. I saved you. You saved the version of me that protected you. The room became quiet. Raymond had expected Elaine and Brianna to turn on each other. Instead, each document showed that he had promised one woman's safety by offering another woman's destruction. Margaret asked Marisol Vega to present the preliminary audit findings. Marisol did not accuse Raymond of theft. She identified discrepancies that required formal review. The foundation reimbursed Raymond for an alleged outreach expense using an invoice bearing Gordon Pike Auto's information. Gordon denied creating that invoice, and its format did not match surviving shop records. Foundation money, classified as victim advocacy legal support, had gone to a firm that represented Brianna in a private family law dispute. Donor reports did not disclose that relationship. Raymond had approved assistance for Daniel's family, while simultaneously warning Daniel's mother that renewed controversy could threaten future fundraising. The audit committee had also identified missing supporting documents, inconsistent expense descriptions, and several payments approved through Raymond's account without the secondary authorization required by Foundation policy. "These are preliminary findings," Marisol said. "They justify a full forensic audit. They do not permit me to state final loss figures or criminal conclusions." Raymond seized on the qualification. "So there is no finding that I stole anything." "There is a finding that the records cannot currently support the explanations given to donors and the board," Marisol said. "You are being paid by people trying to destroy me." "The audit committee retained me. The board approved the engagement without your participation because your transactions are under review." Raymond turned toward me. Until then, he had treated me as the least useful target. Elaine held the original papers. Brianna had signed the statement. Noah and Daniel carried the most visible harm. I carried the one fact he believed could still silence me. Tessa handed Brianna the key, he said. Noah did not move. Raymond leaned forward. She knew Brianna had been drinking. She put a vehicle in the hands of an intoxicated teenager, then spent 14 years blaming everyone else. Now she is marrying Noah because guilt has become the only identity she has left. Every face at the table turned toward me. In another year, or another version of myself, I might have argued immediately. I might have said I had only meant for Brianna to retrieve her jacket, that I had reported the borrowed key, that Raymond had put it back and manipulated the investigation. All of that was true. It was also not the first truth I needed to say. "I gave Brianna the spare key," I said. I knew she had been drinking, and I accepted her claim that she only wanted her jacket. The next morning, I saw the key in the drawer. When my father said she had returned it before the collision, I trusted his certainty over my own doubts. Raymond's expression changed. He had expected denial. I continued. That was reckless. It was also cowardly. I answered questions at trial, but I allowed my father to define what my answers meant because challenging him would have forced me to question my entire family. Raymond looked toward Noah. "You see?" She knew. Noah remained silent. He was not going to absolve me before I finished. "I knew I had handed over a key," I said. "I did not know Brianna would drive. I did not strike Daniel. I did not leave him beside the road. I did not move the SUV to a maintenance shed. I did not take it to Gordon Pike's shop. I did not put the key back in the drawer. I did not pressure witnesses. I did not create an affidavit after receiving a preservation notice. I did not use charitable money to reimburse private expenses. I did not ask anyone to destroy evidence." Raymond's face had gone rigid. "You are separating actions because your lawyers taught you how to escape responsibility." "No, I am separating them because responsibility has boundaries." I looked first at Daniel, then Noah. I will answer for giving Brianna the key and for trusting my father when I had reason to question him. I will answer for the harm caused by my silence. I will not answer for the vehicle Brianna chose to drive or for the cover-up my parents built afterward. Then I looked at Raymond. I will answer for what I did. You will answer for what you did. The words did not make me innocent. That was why they worked. Raymond had spent years using shame as a leash. He could control anyone who needed him to declare them blameless. The moment I stopped asking for that declaration, he lost the strongest weapon he had against me. He turned to Noah. "She failed you. You know that." Noah's voice was quiet. "Yes." The answer struck harder than a defense would have. Raymond almost smiled. Then Noah continued. "She told the truth before it protected her." "You only tell the truth when you think it will destroy someone else." Raymond looked toward Daniel. "You accepted years of support from my foundation." Daniel met his gaze. "I needed a ramp. I needed transportation. I did not sell you my memory." Raymond turned to Elaine. She lowered her eyes but did not reach for him. He looked at Brianna. She sat beside her attorney with tears on her face and her signed statement already beyond his reach. For the first time that morning, Raymond appeared to understand that no one in the room intended to die in his place. Margaret called for the board to enter executive session. Raymond and his attorney were asked to wait in a smaller conference room. The affected parties remained outside, while the directors reviewed the audit committee's recommendation, the preservation order, the subpoena, and the foundation's bylaws. No one celebrated. Daniel left with his attorney before the vote. Brianna sat near the elevator. Elaine stood by the window and watched traffic move below us. Noah and I waited side by side without discussing my admission. 37 minutes later, the doors reopened. The board had voted 5-1 to suspend Raymond immediately from all officer and executive functions pending completion of the audit and external investigation. One director abstained because of a prior business relationship with him. The resolution revoked Raymond's authority to approve payments, access foundation systems, contact staff on behalf of the organization, or issue public statements through its accounts. Independent counsel would supervise compliance with the subpoena and preservation order. Margaret read the final paragraph without raising her voice. Mr. Ward, you are required to surrender your office access badge, electronic authentication device, and all physical keys belonging to the foundation. Raymond stood at the end of the table. His eyes moved from Elaine to Brianna, then to me, as though one of us might object, soften the result, or remind the board who he had once been. No one spoke. He removed the silver badge from his lapel and placed it beside the resolution. Then he took the access card and 2 brass keys from his pocket. The keys struck the table with a small, ordinary sound. For 14 years, my father had controlled our family by deciding who carried the blame and who was allowed to leave the room untouched. That morning, he walked out alone. I am telling this story on July 29, 2026, 15 months after Raymond Ward placed his foundation badge and office keys on a conference table and walked out without anyone following him. His suspension was immediate. Justice was not. For the next several months, the investigation moved through interviews, subpoenas, financial records, device examinations, and lawyers who refused to promise results before the evidence had been tested. Noah and I returned to work. We attended counseling. We paid our legal bills in monthly installments and learned not to treat every unknown number on my phone as an emergency. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation verified the dispatch records, Gordon Pike's shop ledger, the white repair order Elaine had preserved, and the blue carbon copy she had mailed to me. Investigators confirmed that Raymond had possessed the damaged SUV before police officially connected it to Daniel's injuries. They also examined the actions Raymond had taken after receiving the preservation notice. The affidavit he drafted for Elaine placed the entire repair and concealment on her. The agreement he sent Brianna offered legal fees and living expenses if she maintained a statement she had since admitted was false. The proposal he sent me demanded the destruction of repair order copies in exchange for money, a charitable grant, and public acceptance of my marriage. His lawyers argued that he had been attempting to settle a family dispute. The special prosecutor focused on something narrower. Raymond knew records were being preserved for possible official review, yet he created conflicting accounts, pressured witnesses to maintain false versions, and instructed me in writing to destroy copies of evidence. The original cover-up explained his motive. His recent conduct created the clearest path to consequences. Elaine gave 3 interviews with her attorney present. Brianna completed a formal proffer and later testified before a grand jury. Gordon refused to exaggerate what he remembered, which made the records he could authenticate more credible. Daniel released the dispatch call and foundation correspondence through his attorney. I was interviewed twice. During the second interview, the special prosecutor asked why I had handed Brianna the spare key when I knew she had been drinking. I answered the same way I had answered Raymond at the board meeting. I had believed she wanted her jacket. I had been reckless. I had allowed my father's certainty to override my doubts the following morning. I had not known she would drive, but I had played a part in creating the opportunity. No one told me that admitting my mistake made the rest of the evidence worthless. Raymond had trained us to believe responsibility was an all-or-nothing contest. If one person admitted fault, everyone else could escape through the opening. The investigators did not work that way. They separated choices, dates, actions, and intentions. Brianna took the key and drove. Raymond moved and repaired the vehicle, shaped testimony, and protected the lie. Elaine washed the clothing, preserved the documents, and remained silent. I handed over the key and later trusted my father when I should have challenged him. Each action remained attached to the person who performed it. 7 months after the board meeting, Raymond was indicted on charges arising primarily from his recent efforts to obstruct the review, falsify records, misuse foundation documents, and pressure witnesses. The older evidence was described in the case as the history he was trying to continue concealing. He did not accept responsibility immediately. For 3 more months, his attorneys argued that Elaine had manipulated the documents. Brianna had changed her story to protect herself, and I had turned Noah's wrongful conviction into a campaign against my father. Then forensic examination of his computer recovered drafts of all 3 conflicting agreements, along with deleted notes about which family member would be most credible carrying the repair decision. One note described Elaine as financially dependent and likely to cooperate. Another described Brianna as vulnerable through custody concerns. The line about me was shorter. Tessa still wants parental acceptance. When Maya showed me the recovered note, I read it once and handed it back. My father had understood the woman I used to be. He had failed to notice when I stopped bargaining for a place in his family. Raymond eventually entered a negotiated guilty plea to several charges connected to his recent conduct and the foundation records. The written statement of facts acknowledged that he had known Brianna was driving, directed the damaged vehicle away from police inspection, and maintained a false account that contributed to Noah's conviction. He did not receive the decades of prison time some people demanded online. The plea resulted in 18 months of incarceration, followed by supervised release, restitution obligations, and a permanent prohibition against serving as an officer, director, or financial manager of a charitable organization. The sentence could not equal Noah's 11 years. Nothing could. But Raymond entered custody, with the official record stating that he had not made an innocent investigative mistake. He had known who drove and had chosen another person to carry the consequences. That distinction mattered to Noah more than the length of the sentence. He spent years telling people the system proved I was guilty, Noah said after the plea hearing. Now the system has finally recorded what he did. We did not stand outside the courthouse for interviews. Second Chapter Initiative issued a short statement through its legal counsel. Daniel's attorney spoke on his behalf. I declined every request to describe whether watching my father enter custody had brought me closure. Closure was not a door the court could shut for me. It was a series of choices I made afterward. The Ward Road Safety Foundation completed its forensic audit 9 months after Raymond's suspension. The final report identified improper reimbursements, personal legal expenses classified as victim advocacy, altered donor descriptions, and transactions approved without the secondary review required by the Foundation's policies. The fake Gordon Pike invoice had been used to reimburse Raymond for a private expense years after the original repair. The Foundation had not paid to conceal the SUV in 2011 because the organization did not yet exist. Raymond had used the charity later to recover money connected to the concealment, while presenting it as road safety outreach. That detail became one of the clearest symbols of what he had done. He had created a foundation in the language of compassion, then used its records to repay himself for helping cause the harm it claimed to address. The board removed him permanently. The organization changed its name and transferred financial control to an independent management team. The conference room bearing Raymond's name was renamed for a regional rehabilitation program chosen by a vote of the board. His service award was withdrawn by the city. Archived news articles praising his integrity were updated to include the investigation and plea. His photograph disappeared from the Foundation's annual report, though the audit remained publicly available. He lost the ability to edit his own legacy. The financial consequences reached Elaine too. The audit committee negotiated restitution with both of them for transactions tied to accounts they had jointly controlled. Noah, Daniel, the Foundation, and other affected parties pursued separate civil claims through their attorneys. Not every issue was resolved at the same time, and not every demand became a judgment. Raymond and Elaine sold the large house voluntarily after legal fees, restitution obligations, and settlement payments made, keeping it impractical. The sale proceeds went into escrow while lawyers determined mortgage balances, ownership interests, and the amounts due under the agreements. No one arrived with new locks and ordered Elaine into the street. The house did not disappear in a single afternoon. It was listed, inspected, sold, and emptied over several months. Elaine moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the medical center, She and Raymond were legally separated by then, but their divorce was not final. Their attorneys were still addressing debt, retirement accounts, and responsibility for the restitution when I last received an update. 3 weeks before the move, Elaine asked to meet me at a bakery near her new apartment. She looked around the small dining room before saying, "I cannot afford this area for long." I waited. "Your father controlled most of our accounts," she continued. "My attorney says I may not have access to everything until the divorce is settled. What are you asking me?" She lowered her voice. "I thought I could stay with you and Noah for a few months." I did not need time to consider it. "No." Her face tightened. "I am your mother. You are also a cooperating witness in a case involving my husband. Living together would be unhealthy for everyone. I gave you the original evidence. You gave it to protect yourself after keeping it for 14 years. I'm trying to make things right. Then build a life that does not require me to absorb the consequences for you." Elaine looked down at her hands. "You would let me lose my home? The house is already being sold. I am not causing that, and I am not replacing it." I gave her the number of a housing counselor who worked with older adults navigating separation and financial abuse. I did not pay her deposit, add her to our lease, or offer our spare room. Providing information was not the same as surrendering my boundaries. Elaine took the number. She did not thank me. We spoke occasionally after that, always by scheduled phone call or in the presence of a family therapist. I did not call our relationship healed. She had begun telling the truth, but truth told after self-protection failed did not restore trust automatically. Brianna's consequences were different. She resigned from her position connected to the foundation and issued a public correction through her attorney. The statement admitted that she had driven the SUV, left Daniel at the scene, and allowed Noah to remain blamed. Her criminal exposure from the original collision was complicated by the age of the case, but her sworn statement became part of the official record. She also participated in negotiated civil settlements addressing the concealment, the false testimony, and the harm her continued silence had caused. She sold her townhouse and moved into a smaller rental closer to Lucas's school. Her former husband reopened parts of their parenting agreement. But Brianna did not lose her son automatically because she confessed. With guidance from a child therapist, she told Lucas an age-appropriate version of the truth. She explained that she had caused a serious accident when she was young, had allowed another man to be blamed, and was now facing consequences because telling the truth late did not erase what she had done. Lucas did not hear it first from a headline. That was one responsible choice Brianna made without being forced. She wrote to me several times. The letters did not ask for money, but the first two asked whether I could forgive her now that she had cooperated. I answered only once. "I recognize that you told the truth and accepted consequences. I am not ready to build a normal sisterhood around that. We can communicate through therapy, and I will decide each step without promising an ending." We attended 2 sessions over the next year. There was no dramatic embrace. Brianna apologized without asking me to tell her she had been controlled by Raymond. I listened without calling her irredeemable or innocent. Our relationship remained limited, which was more honest than a reunion created to make other people comfortable. Daniel's civil settlement was structured around the foundation's misuse of his medical story, concealed records, and the financial leverage Raymond had exercised through charitable assistance. His attorneys negotiated a voluntary payment placed in a professionally managed trust for long-term care, transportation, equipment replacement, and housing accessibility. Daniel did not return the legitimate assistance his family had received. The audit made clear that he had qualified for that help and had not participated in the false reporting. He also refused invitations that described him as Noah's new friend. They were not friends. They appeared together once at a second chapter panel about what happens when an official record changes. Daniel spoke about being turned into a symbol by prosecutors, charities, and journalists. Noah spoke about the expectation that a person must be flawless before the public accepts that a conviction was wrong. When the moderator asked whether they had forgiven each other, Daniel answered first. "Noah apologized for hitting me. I accepted that apology. That is not the same as pretending every part of the past has been repaired." Noah nodded. "I can live with the truth being smaller than a perfect ending." After the event, they shook hands and left in different cars. Noah's wrongful imprisonment compensation claim was still moving through the required process when I began telling this story. His lawyers had completed the eligibility stage and submitted the compensation materials, but no payment had arrived. We did not spend money that existed only in a legal estimate. Second Chapter Initiative promoted Noah to oversee 2 job training programs. He continued therapy. Some nights he still woke before dawn and checked the locks even though no guard was coming through the door. Marriage did not cure that. It gave him someone who asked before turning on the light. My own settlement was much smaller than the numbers attached to Noah's and Daniel's claims. Raymond and the foundation's insurer reimbursed part of my legal expenses and resolved a claim tied to the false statement that I had handed the key to Noah after watching him drink and threaten Daniel. Noah and I did not donate all of it to prove we were better people. We paid our remaining legal debt. We built an emergency fund large enough to cover 6 months of expenses. We opened a savings account for a future down payment on a modest house. We contributed a smaller amount to the vocational program where I worked, specifically for transportation vouchers and certification fees. Helping others did not require us to remain financially vulnerable. 2 weeks before Raymond entered custody, he sent me one final message. "You destroyed this family for money and attention." I did not correct him. I did not send the audit, the plea agreement, or a photograph of the wedding invitation. I forwarded the message to Maya because his contact restrictions were still being reviewed, then blocked the number. Silence was no longer something he imposed on me. It was something I could choose when no answer would improve the truth. On our first wedding anniversary, Noah and I opened the album our photographer had delivered months earlier. The first pages showed the greenhouse before the ceremony. In one photograph, the 2 ivory cards marked Mom and Dad rested on the front row seats. On the next page, Daniel occupied one of those chairs. Noah's mentor sat in the other. Behind them were Aunt Marlene, Uncle Peter, Leah, Maya, coworkers, neighbors, and people who had entered our lives through choices rather than obligation. The Billboard photograph appeared later in the album, after the ceremony, dinner, and the people who had actually been there. I preferred it that way. The Billboard had exposed my parents' absence, but it was not the most important image from the day. A public display could make people ask questions. It could not decide who belonged in our life after the questions were answered. I saved the old family chat as a legal archive, exported the messages, and sent the file to Maya. Then I left the group. I did not post a farewell. By July, the downtown Billboard had changed several times. When Noah and I drove past it on our way to visit the small house we were considering buying, it displayed an advertisement for a dental practice. Noah glanced up at it. "Do you miss seeing our faces there?" "No, not even a little. I like our faces better where we can see each other." He smiled and kept driving. The past did not disappear when Raymond lost his foundation, his house, his freedom, and the family members who once protected him. Noah did not receive 11 years back. Daniel did not wake in the body he had before the collision. My admission about the key did not become harmless because I finally made it honestly. But the past no longer controlled every chair at my table. My father had built his power by deciding who would carry shame for everyone else. He lost that power when each of us accepted our own part and refused to carry his. In the final photograph of our wedding album, Noah and I stood at the greenhouse exit, surrounded by the people who had stayed until the lights came on. There were no empty chairs visible behind us, only the people who had chosen to show up. You may not be responsible for every wrong done around you, but you are responsible for what you choose once you know the truth. Protecting family should never mean hiding evidence, blaming an innocent person, or carrying someone else's consequences. You can admit your own mistakes without accepting guilt that belongs to others. Set boundaries, document facts, seek proper legal help, and let accountability follow the person who caused the harm. Real strength is not avoiding shame. It is facing the truth before fear controls another life. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, justice, and hard-earned freedom.